Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Twitter. You can find me at, You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
South Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And those sound effects you've heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Spread love, it's the Brooklyn way.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. Not sure where my cash register went. There it is.
Yes, I'm sure it was surely missed after that after that last show that I did of the news, but folks can still check that out in the archives. And you can check out this show on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's cspn.us.
Do it today.
You can also check out this here podcast on your podcast perusal place of choice, be it Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network SoundCloud page. Oh wow, what is that? Okay, I'm not gonna. Whoa. All right. You can also find us every Thursday night where we record on twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles and youtube.com/TheClickNation. So we appreciate folks coming through for watching us record. It is always appreciated, as a matter of fact, like I said, on Twitch, if you feel like helping us out, give us a follow on that so we can get our follows up. We just need like 20, 30 more to do some things.
Sure, and as always, remember to click like and subscribe wherever you find us, whether it be via any podcast place of your choice or on YouTube. Oh, and click the notification alarm bell too. Gotta remind you to listen in. Gotta get that notification when we're recording or broadcasting live.
Yeah, that goes for Twitch and YouTube, right? Yeah, Twitch and YouTube and those places. Yeah, exactly. So folks, we are going to get into discussing Loki episode 6, the final episode of season 1.
Right. So, of course, we do have the spoiler warning up front in the audio show. Mm-hmm. But seriously, folks, we are going to spoil the living hell out of the entire Loki show. And we're probably going to spoil the heck out of the entire MCU because this finale has long-reaching ramifications. It really does. So I'm going to ring the spoiler bell, so get ready to fast forward from this point on and maybe go a good 15 and then maybe 20 minutes. But we'll see.
Yeah, but so hopefully no more than 20.
Right. But we'll see because this spoiler-filled discussion may last a bit. So you are forewarned up front in 3, 2, 1. Spoilers incoming.
So this episode is... What is it called? Hold on, let me back up for a second because I totally forgot what I was doing here for a second.
For all time, always.
Thank you. That is the name of the episode, and it starts off with obviously the previously on, and this part I was kind of loving when it came in. The Marvel Studios treatment is a little bit different here because it starts off with various sound bites from other Marvel cinematic movies and shows. Well, yeah, actually movies and shows, actually. Specifically more movies and stuff. But also some real world quotes from folks of note. One of which will probably come back up when we talk about the comics, which is kind of funny. But
I think I saw. I think I happen to be watching with subtitles on. And I know Roddykat has said in the past that he always watches with subtitles on. So it was interesting to see that Greta Thunberg was in there. Malala Yousafzai was in there.
Maya Angelou, Alan
yeah,
Watts.
Exactly. So it was interesting to see their names pop up next to, like with their quotes being spoken.
Right. I believe was it Buzz Aldrin or
Neil Armstrong?
Neil Armstrong. Thank you.
Man,
Yes. There we go. I knew it was one. I couldn't remember which one, but yes, definitely them too. So yeah, so we start off with that, and doing the normal going into the Marvel Studios treatment. But like I said, we got that, and at the end of that, it just went into a whole bunch of like sound bites, all just bundled together, including Hulk's like puny god, and that was the only one I could make out, and then everything else just kind of jumbled up in itself before going into the thing. But it was great.
There a language in there? I could have sworn there was, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I'm
not sure. I'm gonna have to go back and check it. But either way.
Yeah, like I watched it. Watched it a couple of times. I'm like, let me see what I could pick up, but I don't know. It's quite possible. But anyway, we go. We cut to the void, not the void, but the end of, or near the end of time, I guess, and some asteroid that looks like a donut that's been eaten from the inside. And it gets closer, and we cut to see Loki and Sylvie standing on said asteroid and looking at the castle that they saw at the end of last episode. But then it cuts to them at the door where Sylvie's looking kind of nervous because she was like going up to the door. And like she was about to knock it down, and then she kind of stops and was like, "So you're not gonna say anything? you're not gonna say we should do something a little different, But because you can see she was like really nervous about it, and Loki's like, "No, I have nothing to say." She's like, "That's unusual," but then he starts to say something, and she's like, I've been waiting for this all my life. It's a little bit to take in. So, shut up. Give me a second. Loki's like, all right, you got this. But right after that, the door opens up by itself, so this doesn't even matter. They kind of walk in, and they get greeted by Miss Minutes, who welcomes them to the Citadel at the end of time. And
I admit to being a little bit, to having a little bit of a jump scare with that when she popped out. I was like, "Oh, Miss Minutes." That was a little scary.
Yeah, like outside of being, like I told you earlier, I was slightly spoiled on this one, and I kind of figured she was going to show up at some point, but I didn't think it was going to be this early. So she shows up, talks to him, and like, "Hey, you made it this far, and this and that and the other." But then she starts talking like, "Hey, he can give you anything you want." Pretty much making a bargain, trying to make a bargain with them, I guess to keep them from going forward. With what they were doing. And of course, she names He Who Remains, which at first I was like, I don't remember that from being in the comics, but apparently after a little bit of research, that is definitely still the person, that is a name for a version of the person that ends up showing up in a little bit.
Right.
I should say a version of a version.
Right. And it's definitely the name of the character who is responsible for the TVA in the comics at first.
Yes. And yes, that is correct. I did see that in my research. So, and she basically was like, "Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but he can work it out. He can make it so that Loki could get all the Infinity Stones, kill Thanos, can rule like he wants to, and give Sylvie a lifetime of happy memories, if I remember correctly." and they think it's over. So it's like, no, this sounds like a trap. And they're like, no, basically no deal. And then Miss Minutes just disappeared, and they keep walking through this castle. After she tries to sweeten the deal, but it doesn't happen.
It's a trap.
Yes, basically. So, and then we see Miss Minutes actually going to Ravonna Renslayer's office, and she offers some files on behalf of He Who Remains, but she doesn't say this. She basically says that Ravonna looks at she basically says, "Hey, I'm downloading the files right now." Ravonna looks at the TemPad and it's like, these are not the files I wanted. And Miss Minutes is like, yeah, but these are the ones that he thought was that would be necessary.
She didn't even wave her hands and say, these are not the files you're looking for.
Exactly. And to which Ravonna was like, who? And Miss Minutes is like, yep. So there is that. So cut back to Loki and Sylvie, who's going through the castle. A door opens up to reveal said He Who Remains in the form of one Jonathan Majors, of which we know who's going to be Kang in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Right. So this is the big reveal of this episode, and I, for one, did not expect to see this reveal in this episode or this show or in a streaming show.
Right.
Because I will be, in the most frank way possible, I was dumbstruck because I never expected them to introduce a major villain who we know has already been cast and put into play in the next Ant-Man and Wasp movie, in Quantumania. So we never, ever thought we would see a villain of this magnitude be introduced in a Disney Plus show, which is astounding to me. And it just goes to show that what I said at the end in the theater as we were leaving, as my friends and I were leaving Black Widow, that is, what I said still rings even more true, which is the Disney Plus shows are absolutely required viewing in order for people to keep up with everything that's going on in the MCU as a whole, and to keep up with the movies.
Yep.
In a sense, you can forego it, but you miss out on too much.
Right. Especially going to Black Widow, a particular point in the end credit scene, because there was because of something or someone that shows up there.
Exactly. And for anyone who's looking for our discussion on that and exactly what I said and what my experience in the movie theater was with that actual phenomenon coming into play, go back and check out our previous episode, episode 424, for that reaction.
Yep. But moving right along, excuse me. So yeah, they run into He Who Remains, which is Jonathan Major, in a robe that looks like it's kind of sort of like it's a purple robe. Doesn't have the green the green tinges of Immortus, but I'm guessing this is supposed to be an Immortus or kind of sort of Immortus. We don't necessarily know, because you do see a little thing on his on
ultimately how it's explained is all we need to know is that it's a variant,
right? And
it's variant concept that is probably going to be one of the lasting changes from this show that moves forward into the MCU.
So yeah, and
we all know about variant covers, but we never knew about variant characters. We knew about What If,
or
about multiverses,
exactly,
but not necessarily about variants and this concept of variants.
Right, and the concept of variants is pretty much the same thing as alternate universes, and they just gave it
they gave it a name. Right, they gave it a name that has its roots, at least for the comic book collectors, in variant covers. So it's really cool how that has come full circle. That term has come full circle in comicdom.
Yeah, indeed. So So yeah, Jonathan Majors, He Who Remains, is chomping on an apple, and he basically takes them to the office. They get in this elevator with him in front and them behind him, almost like Ravana, and going to the TVA chamber. And they try to kill him. It doesn't work because he's warping around because he's he, as he says later on, he knows what's happening. He knows what you're all gonna do, so he could just zip around. So he knows how to keep them from killing them. And his last zip is pretty much out of the elevator and into the office, where the next thing we see is the elevator door opening up, and he's right there still jumping on his apple and talking about, saying, come on in. We shoot back to the TVA with Mobius returning from the void and confronts Ravana. She apologizes for him for pruning him, and says he got into the way of the mission, and they have a discussion. And when after she puts in a call for backup, which doesn't come because apparently B-15, played by Wunmi Masaku, is being pursued by the Minuteman that she was trying to call in. So the backup she was trying to call in would never come. But we come to find out that B-15 is in Fremont, Ohio in 2018. Who apparently, the fact that she got out of the prison she was in some kind of way, I guess we already knew that because, well, did I actually? Anyway, she got free from prison because the last we saw her before then, she was in prison. She was in a prison, so she got freed at some point. After helping Loki and Sylvie. So we can assume it was probably by Mobius, but we don't know. Regardless, she goes into an office of this high school, and leads this other Minuteman to this office, and come to discover that the principal, whose office this is a variant of Ravana Renslayer, who's asking, "What the hell are you doing in my office?" And we also come to find out apparently where that Franklin Roosevelt pen came from, because it came from this office. So I guess B-15 was trying to get this other Minuteman in there just to see the variant and to start to explain what's going on. But we cut back to the castle, and Loki and Sylvie begin to realize that their plans of murder are falling apart, according to this recap we're using. Especially when He Remains pulls out a script for this very consult. So he basically pulls out, like, nope, you can't kill me because I know everything that's happened. Starts pulling out basically receipts, as some would say colloquially, like with pretty much stuff was being said, almost like the sheet that Loki was given in the beginning when was told to sign here. So that's kind of funny. He's like, yeah, you can't, like, he basically says that, hey, all this happened because it's supposed to, which is the thing we've heard before in the show, and that it needs to happen. He's like, then we cut back to Ravana and Mobius, who says that Ravana says that Mobius that the timekeepers are a necessary lie, and that in order to keep some order, this has to be a thing. And then they have a good conversation about free will, and she says that the only person who can have free will is the person that's in charge. And she accuses Mobius of betraying her and their friendship in supporting the Lokis, which I don't know if you can make that as out. He must have done this before or something, because I don't know. It seemed like they've been friends for a long time, but there's some things that he doesn't know about, apparently, in that exchange, so we don't know. So he pleads and says they can make something better together, but she gets her TemPad off the table. Well, excuse me, yeah, that's right. He tries to go at her with the pruning stick, and she takes it from him quite handily, but then turns it off, grabs her TemPad and goes through a time door, saying that she's going to search for free will. And we never see her again after this. but maybe we will in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Right. So, we're obviously spoiling the hell out of this show.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the first clue. And I've said this on the show, and I've said this in spots anecdotally. This show definitely felt like it was not going to end with one season. And we'll get to it, but it turns out that, we don't see what happens to Ravonna because, and it's logical that this is the next statement, there's going to be a season 2.
Yes, and again, we'll definitely get to that. Well, we will revisit that in a few. But to continue, so we cut back to the castle. He Who Remains explains that his methods are deceptive, but they work, and it's all in a part of making sure everything doesn't go crazy and burn down, as he says. He goes on to explain his backstory. He also uses the words. Some folks call him a ruler, a conqueror, which is pretty much saying, as a nod to his Kang the Conqueror name.
Exactly. And at this point, if you weren't familiar with the announcement that Jonathan Majors was cast as Kang, I was familiar with his face, not necessarily with all of his work, but I had seen pictures of the actor when the announcement for Kang had gone out for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So when I saw him, I was like, I think that's him, right? Without immediately snapping to that's absolutely him, just because I'm not that familiar with his face.
Right. But whereas I had...
Right. Oh, sorry. I mean, just my point is, as soon as he mentioned his role and what he was doing, and obviously everyone's supposed to know by this point that it's Kang, but it just serves to confirm for me because I just wasn't 100% familiar with his face.
Right.
Go on.
Whereas, I was just going to say that, whereas I was familiar with his face because I'd seen Lovecraft Country, which was like the first time I'd ever seen him. So that's how I knew he was him, and so having the face with the name was like, okay, yeah, so yeah. Already, that was what I knew. And obviously, I'm sure there were people who have watched Lovecraft Country, even if they didn't know that he was going to be, and that it was probably still shocked to see him in this, regardless.
Right.
So,
although I would think the Venn diagram probably has some intersecting part to it, between these two respective shows. But in any event, moving on.
Yeah, I guess in a way, kind of. But yes. So he ends on to continuing to explain his backstory. He's a scientist from the 31st century. Variant discovered universes. He basically discovered that the multiverse existed and saw and found other variants of him. And basically, sounds like he ended up sounding like the Council of Kangs ended up being a thing here. But of course, some versions sought conquest rather than communication, and that caused a war between them all, and which led him to eventually make the TVA. Is the long and short of it. They don't necessarily go into the variants and their names or whatnot, but we kind of at this point we kind of know who is what in this situation. And I'm pretty sure we'll probably find out a little bit more as this phase goes on anyway. So, but it says here, let's see. Oh yeah, and then they started talking about Alioth. What is it? Wait. What is it? How's it pronounce it? Is that how you pronounce it?
Alioth.
Okay.
Like Goliath.
Like Goliath.
Goliath without the G.
Got it. So Alioth. I keep fucking that up. I don't know why. But so he's talking about the conversation ended up going into Alioth and him finding him and basically turning him into the guard dog for this monster, and I mean for this for all realities, and basically him making the Shark Tank that helps keep the timelines clean at a certain point. So he says he used Alioth and ended the war and isolated the timeline, and then he created the TVA and pretty much had everything, a nice little neat bureaucracy, as he says, to kind of keep everything in line. So he's basically saying he's not evil. He's not evil, but he's a dictator in all of that. And so he then goes on to say, hey, you have a choice. Kill him, take over the TVA, or because he's kind of tired of I guess doing it at some point, or them two being Loki and Sylvie, either kill him or take over the TVA, basically. Those are the two choices. So Sylvie still at this point still wants to kill him. Loki's starting to think, hey, maybe we should chill and think about this for a second. So Loki and Sylvie end up going into a fight at some point. And all the while, we see in the back behind Kang, the timeline's still kind of branching off, but we don't see the red line like we normally do. So Loki and Sylvie kind of fight for a little bit, and then Loki actually gets them to fight to stop what she's doing, and then I believe this is when the thunder starts to happen after they calm down again. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. So basically, or maybe this was before that fight. I don't know. But regardless, so they're sitting there talking. Apparently they've crossed the threshold because there's a lot of thunder, and He Who Remains is hearing this. Is like, I don't have no idea what's going on after this because now we're at a point of where nothing's written. So yeah, he doesn't know what's going to happen next. Okay, yes, and this is when the fight between Sylvie and Loki fights because Sylvie pretty much goes for He Who Remains. Loki stops her. They get into the fight, but then he gets to where he calms her down after a couple of minutes, and He Who Remains is just over there eating his apple, just like having a good old time watching the whole fight. Like, yeah, this is all good. And of course, he also seeded kind of some seeds of doubt within both of them because they were talking about, well, you can't trust him. And whatever he said for Loki, until, like I said, Loki kind of calms her down, but she turns the table and knocks him through a time portal back to the TVA, as we will find out. Then Sylvie stabs He Who Remains, and basically who dies not before saying, "I'll see you soon," kind of looking kind of.
Right. He kind of dies happy.
Right.
Which is disconcerting, and we will find out very soon why he kind of got what he wanted.
Right, because actually because in the two choices that was given, because he basically says kill him, which will unleash a whole bunch of other variants of him that could be way worse. Which is why Loki was like, hold on, maybe we shouldn't do this, or take over the TVA, But since Sylvie, being who she is, killed him, and I guess this seemingly must have given him what he wanted, or because even in that scenario, and time being a circle, it sounds like he's going to end up back in the same position again at some point. From what it sounds like, or what it did sound like, because even when you say, well, you killed me and I still end up back here somewhere, running this thing again at some point. So anyway, so after Sylvie kills him, she sits on the floor like crying or something. I can't remember what she was doing, but she was kind of weighing it out or something.
Well, yeah, I think she was starting to process the ramifications of her decision, because she essentially was she acts here in defiance of Loki's believe it or not logic, because Loki is the one who figures out that He Who Remains is actually telling the truth, about what would happen, what the possible ramifications are, and Sylvie's not hearing any of it. She just wants what she wants because she wants satisfaction. She wants her revenge. So she takes action to gain her revenge and to gain her own satisfaction at the sacrifice, at the to the ill of everyone else. And that's definitely one part of this part. That's one way the storyline decided to play out.
Right. So, but yeah, it's been great, even getting up to this point right here, because after all of that, and you might have just said it, but the timeline starts to crackle. I almost called it the Kirby crackle, but that's not necessarily the case here.
Oh, not here, not here.
Yeah. But the timeline starts spinning. You can see outside in the window, and the branching gets way worse. And back at the TVA, we see Mobius and B-15 together, and they're repeating the TVA mantra, which is basically the title of this episode: "For all time, always." And then we cut to Loki, who's somewhere else in the TVA after he gets bounced out of the Citadel, and he's just sitting there silently, because it makes you think like he's gonna go evil again, because he feels like, it looks like, credit to Tom Hiddleston, because he looks like he's going through a few different emotions in this one, almost like he did when in the first episode when he saw himself getting killed and saw
Right.
and his mom getting killed and everything else, and that he knew, well, actually that he didn't know that was going to happen at the time.
Right, exactly. Everything that happens to Loki in Infinity War,
Right.
and Ragnarok,
And
so, yeah.
Ragnarok, and Thor and the Dark World. But anyway, so. But yeah, he's just like sitting there for a minute. And you can see like just emotions just going over his face until he gets up and starts running off. And he goes. We see him stop in a couple of places and then just kind of pause and then start running off again. Goes to the library where he comes across Mobius and B-15, and they're talking about the branching stuff. And Loki pretty much runs up on him and it's like, "Hey, there's countless versions of of this dude coming. Like, he's a big bad. We gotta do something to stop it." And then this is when we find out the other big reveal is that Mobius is like, "Who are you? Are you an analyst? Like, what is your name? Who are you?" So they basically don't know who Loki is at this point, which means that the timeline has definitely changed.
Exactly, and we don't know how.
Exactly.
At least with regards to Loki and his identity in this particular timeline.
Right. So, as this is happening, Loki kind of looks out upon the library, and he sees what should have been a familiar statue that was in there in previous episodes, but the statue has now changed to look more like. Huh? Wait, you're muted.
It would have been 3 statues. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, you're right, because it would have been the all 3 time crews. You're absolutely right. So we see one statue, and it is of He Who Remains, in the form that we saw him in, which means that again, like I said, the timeline is, because even when before Loki runs up on him, B-15 and Mobius was like, he wants us to do what? We're like, all these timelines are branching. Like, what are we supposed to do with all of this? That kind of situation. So it's clear that they are taking their orders from somewhere, and that somewhere is probably him, given that information. And then, like I said, not knowing who Loki is for whatever reason, how the timeline played, and then cutting out in almost Planet of the Apes style. Looks out and sees the statue. Is like, you blew it up. It wouldn't be that part of it, but I guess the remake of the Planet of the Apes. Now that I think about it, where they go to the Lincoln Memorial and the Lincoln Memorial is like. I saw this on a video. That's the only reason why I know, because I
I was
don't
about to say
remember
you
seeing
got
it.
me. I didn't watch the movie.
Yeah, I
That's the
watched like
Walbrook version, right?
yes, I watched part of the movie,
Yeah,
but I didn't get to the whole thing. But I didn't get to that part. Like if it wasn't for this video that I saw, it was that. But also I kind of see it because there's been similar things in films that that are similar to it. So it was a good little reveal like at the end of it. As also, which was like, well, there you go. So, and then that ends the show. And this is where we find out where we get the season 2, because we don't get this end credit scene, but we just get it goes through the
we get a version of an end credit scene. We don't get a true end credit scene.
Yeah, basically, but all it really is like it goes through the motion, then it gets to the point, and we see a folder gets, or I guess we see Loki's file get stamped with season 2. So that's when we find out Loki's going to get season 2.
Exactly.
And then it goes into the rest of the credits, and that ends the show. So it's it was a big. I haven't seen too many people be disappointed by this episode. Now I've seen people obviously come going into this episode or going into the show, much less because they're expectations. We don't even have to go into that, but I'm pretty sure for the most people's reactions to what happened in this episode, was all positive for the most part.
I think so, because at least the anecdotal evidence that I have is that a lot of people were just not feeling where the show was going. And I think they really did an excellent job of laying the seeds for several things that, as I said earlier, made me suspect very strongly that they were not going to try to wrap things up in 6 episodes, that they were going to go beyond that. So I thought that once we got to episode 5 and where it was, all I could think of was there's no way they could finish this off in 1 episode. There has to be a second season. And I was right. Now, not that I'm patting myself on the back per se.
Right.
But ultimately, that's how they played it out. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I was flabbergasted, dumbstruck when I saw Jonathan Majors. I was like, I could not believe they introduced such a major villain who's going to play a role in the future of the MCU on one of the MCU Disney Plus shows. And what's crazy about it is that we still have several villains who are on deck, who are still, or on the bench still, who still have not yet been used. And Kang is going to play a role, since they have equated the whole multiverse thing and variants with timelines. So, and obviously they go hand in hand, but the way the concept was set forth and portrayed in Loki, I think is a primer for everyone to understand how these multiverses come into play here in the MCU, the way they have decided to portray it. So it's interesting that the first 2 Disney Plus shows, and a lot of people taking the big picture, taking the forest view of the MCU post Endgame, kind of post Far From Home, where we're kind of getting into phase 4 proper.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks have been trying to come up with a way to put these shows into perspective. And so I think the first 2 shows, I think put properly into perspective, are really the post Endgame shows. They're the ones that deal with the aftermath, that deal with the fallout of Endgame. And now we have Loki, who of course is not dealing with the aftermath of Endgame because he died at Infinity War. But this variant is the one who is essentially the aftermath, part of the aftermath of Endgame, part of the fallout from Endgame.
Right.
And it is his character who leads us into phase 4 proper, I think, at least in terms of this show, setting the stage for where the movies and the shows in phase 4 are going to go.
Yeah.
At least big picture wise.
Right. Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. Definitely seems. So, actually, we got a very good question here in the in the chat. Shout out to my girl Soraya, who's in the chat.
Is it? I was about to say, is it YouTube or Twitch?
Twitch, who is asking, is there any? Because she hasn't seen the shows. Yeah, she hasn't seen any of the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, and she was asking if there's a recommended order to watch them in, and I basically said in the chat, no, because they don't really connect
Release
together.
order.
Like that. Yeah.
Release.
Well,
Yeah, just
I mean, you could very do that, but they don't connect with each other in any in any kind of way.
Right, but at the same time, I think if you watch them in release order, you get the big picture the way I just described it. Whereas the first two shows are the true aftermath, and the heroes kind of coming together and picking up their own pieces and helping the world pick up their pieces. Whereas Loki really is, I think, the bridge between Phase 3 and Phase 4, where we've got this gigantic concept of the multiverse and variants and varying timelines. So, I think the way it was released is the way to watch it. And I'm kind of curious to see. I'm curious to see how. Well, I've read somewhere. I don't know if you have it in the news. I've read that one of the actors who is part of the What If series is saying that the What If series may actually play a bigger role than we think in setting up the stage for the multiverse and the future of the MCU.
So I have seen. I have seen stuff. I'm not sure if I have that in there either, but I've definitely seen where they were like, yeah, they're setting up a multiversal Avengers, and there's definitely going to be, What If is definitely going to play
a bigger role than we think.
Exactly.
Yeah, a bigger role than we think, because as comic book fans, we know the concept of What If, and we appreciate it. It's the people who are coming in are like, oh, okay, so it's a simple concept. It's literally a 2-word concept, right? What if? But whether or not whether or not this show serves as a vehicle for expanding on the idea of these multiversal concepts and the variants and all that stuff coming into play, that's left for the show to show us. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. What I'm trying to figure out is, I guess there's going to be at least 2 kind of tracks that the shows and the movies are going to play on, because there are still grounded, is the term a lot of people use for them, kind of street level heroes that are going to be part of the MCU going forward. They're not all going to be involved or at least not up front. They're not all going to be involved, or right away be involved in all the timey-wimey universal consequences stuff. We're going to get a Shang-Chi, kind of a ground level hero. We're still going to get 2 Hawkeyes and a Black Widow or a White Widow, ground level heroes coming up in the very near future, right? So we're still going to have that. But so essentially what I'm saying is, we're having 2 parallel tracks. We're getting the multiversal time stuff, and we're still getting our dose of ground level heroes who are going to give us, the grounded human takes on these stories. And so it'll be interesting to see how they intertwine those 2, because eventually they did that with Cap and Spidey, and Iron Man to an extent. But, they all eventually weave together into these gigantic stories. It'll be interesting to see how they do that with these newer characters.
Right. So yeah, so that's pretty much the episode. I think to wrap back around real quick to that. And
for anybody who's fast forwarded, we're still talking about Loki, but we're talking about the big picture stuff for the MCU too.
Yes, in fact, I think we might. I thought we could probably, because there is a little bit of news Loki related. But we'll save it. We'll save it for when we get to the.
If anyone is interested in the first appearance, the first appearance of the idea of multiple Kangs, or at least the introduction of the comic concept of the Council of Kangs, you have to go back to Avengers. The first volume issues number 267 through 269. These are actually comics that were being released in our formative comic book years. This is Roger Stern and Big John Buscema on the main creative teams, the writer and the artist, and this is just prior to the siege on Avengers Mansion.
Right, but on I guess quote unquote smaller scale, if you're just in tune to the MCU, I guess the closest thing we got to it was the two Caps fight from Endgame, where Cap's fighting himself or another version of himself. That's kind of in a way a similar part of it, but yes, the comic version of that is what Agent 70 said. So wrap it back, like roll one quick, and then we could just going to go on. So we mentioned that the Marvel Studios treatment had a bunch of stock clips from various movies, various of the MCU movies. It's kind of curious the particular ones that they used. That is kind of curious.
Okay.
Because
do you have a list of them?
Yes, in fact, that CNET article does definitely have that. So it starts off with Sam Wilson from Civil War to my way to go Tic Tac when he's talking to Ant-Man. Then it's That's How You Punch, Hope Van Dyne from Ant-Man, which that's kind of curious. Wakanda Forever from Black Panther. You wouldn't have heard from me. That's from Ant-Man. I guess Let Me Put You on Hold from Avengers. Dance Off Bro from Guardians of the Galaxy. He's a Friend from Work from Thor Ragnarok. The aforementioned Endgame fight. I Can Do This All Day, and Yeah, I Know. From the Cap fight from Endgame. But then there's like I said, it kind of goes on there. Like I said, there's Hank Pym says I'll show you ferocity from Ant-Man. Then there's Higher, Further, Faster Baby from Captain Marvel. So like that, they're kind of hitting different points back and forth, and then after that, after what Loki says, and and the Korg says we're gonna jump in that spaceship and get out of here. You want to come? Like there's curious as to why they chose those particular sound bites to use, and then it kind of goes into the real world sound bites from folks, and then kind of ends with Sylvie from episode 5 saying "Open your eyes." Oh yeah, and then there's that vision. What is grief? But if not love, persevering line from WandaVision.
Right, wasn't that the last one? Didn't they close with that one?
No, it was one of the last ones. The very last one, it says, according to this, it was Sylvie saying "Open your eyes."
Oh, okay. I don't count that one. That's part of the show.
Yeah, I know. But in between that is like a quote from Maya Angelou saying, and then I guess there's a song that apparently we must have heard, that we apparently have heard in Captain America before, that gets gonna revisited. But anyway, like I said, the only reason why I bring that up was because, they chose. There has to be a reason why they chose those, and I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be one. I'm also wondering if we're going to get Secret Wars, but two, I'm kind of wondering in one of the multiverses, are we going to get a proper Avengers founding out of it somehow, some way, because it's weird for them to put the Nadia and Hank Pym stuff in there, or in the Scott stuff. But I don't know. Like, it's speculation. I don't know. I'm looking forward to whatever Secret Wars they're going to end up doing, and I suppose, as long as we can get Thor's.
It's not going to be, my heart would leap at the idea of the classic Marvel superhero Secret Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's just a off the wall concept.
But then they would have to put in the Beyonder, and
right, exactly, which they could. But my point being that they probably don't necessarily want to have such a limited idea, because it's a pretty straightforward idea.
Mm-hmm.
They probably want to have this universe spanning multiverse spanning idea, which is what Hickman's Secret Wars
Totally.
was more involved with. So that's where I think the MCU Secret Wars coming in eventually. We still have a while to go before that, though. So, but in any event, I'm gonna go find that CNET article. Is it in the clickbait or is it one of the news articles?
Neither actually. I just have it here. So yes, I
Oh,
can, but I will
I
put
thought
it.
it was on the sheet.
It will
You
be
were
in
like,
like.
it's the CNET article, and I'm
It,
like, look, I'm like, what is he talking about?
well, I thought you had. I thought you had
Oh, you
already
mean the
looked it
Loki
up.
recap?
Yeah.
Oh no, I only had the we were using the CBR Loki recap.
Right. Well, guess what, folks? It will be in the show notes under the clickbait section. If you go to the show notes, so there you go.
Got it.
It is there right now. But we are going to move right along. Like I said, I enjoyed the Loki season 1. I am definitely looking, forward to season 2 when it happens, and kind of curious as to where they're going to go with it, when it does actually happen, and what status and what Loki's status is going to be when that actually happens. Because we got, wait, don't we have? We know Shang-Chi's coming. We know Spidey's coming. We know Doctor Strange is coming. And Doctor Strange. Oh well, there is rumor that we'll get to that when we get to the news, because apparently there's a rumor and a report that Loki's probably going to be in Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness, which makes sense.
Right, and Eternals. So they'll weave.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
No, I mean, but the point is they'll weave Eternals into this.
Oh, right, right. That is coming out this year.
Too. I'm just talking about in terms of what's coming out this year.
Right.
So, in terms of what I was saying earlier about ground level versus the far more, supernatural, cosmic, mystic stuff, they fall into that category.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. It'll be a little easier to weave them in somehow.
Mm.
As opposed to the street level, the grounded character. So,
right.
But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask, but I want you to mull this question over. You don't necessarily have to answer it. Out of the 3 Marvel shows that we have seen so far, which one do you like the best?
It's a good question. I think in terms of heft, emotional heft, I think WandaVision wins. In terms of developing the MCU, I think that's a tie between Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because they needed to pull off the handoff to a new Captain America in the show, and they needed room to do it as opposed to in a movie. So they used those 8 episodes actually to tell that story. Right. Where they whiffed in that was the Sharon Carter stuff. To an extent, because it just apparently wasn't well received. I was, and I think I was lukewarm on it. I don't remember how you reacted.
Yeah. I was kind of like, okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like lukewarm, is probably a fair way to assess that as well.
Yeah, like I didn't have a problem with it, but it was like, okay, that make, I guess in some kind of way it makes some sort of sense. So okay.
Exactly. But neither of us are cheering it on. So ultimately, I think that's the most fair way I can assess these 3 shows, because they each served a purpose, and they needed to move the MCU forward. And I think overall, in terms of the execution, I still have to go with WandaVision as just going, having a concept that they needed to execute and a theme that they were following. So I think WandaVision really did it. Its ending really could have done without a lot of the kind of not great looking flying around stuff in the battle. But I thought overall, I think WandaVision really did the best job of executing its plan. How about you?
Yeah, I'd probably have to go with WandaVision, because it was like, one, it was so out of left field. 2, the things that it dealt with, it's like, okay, so we're getting. We're basically getting a how many ever episode, dealing with grief. Spoiler for that, but it's good. You should still watch it. But it starts off in such a out of left field way, but it pays off in the end to a point. And I was like, yeah, it's great. Like, Falcon and Winter Soldier was a solid show, but it did what it did. I and that one I don't like how it ended up for one character, because I feel like that that character still needed a little bit more before he got a win. But it is what it is, and yeah, Loki was just kind of in the middle of those two, because like Loki, I wasn't expecting Loki to be a big action show, but for what it's doing right now, and what it's setting up is really great. So, and I don't know what is going on with I don't know what's going on with our Skype. But moving right along, we're going to get into the comic books of the week while I fix this. And I think we said we were going to start off with Sinister War #1.
Oh, we're transitioning here.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Sinister. No, you want to go ahead and do the credits?
Sure. Sinister War #1 is written by Nick Spencer with pencils by Mark Bagley, inks by Andrew Hennessy, John Dell, and Andy Owens, colors by Brian Reber, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna, our favorite lettering paisan. So, for folks who have not been following Nick Spencer's Spider-Man, it has all led to this. It is safe to say it really has all led to this. The entirety of his run seems to be culminating in this Sinister War story. We are getting what's going to happen, or we're getting a reveal as to what Kindred has been up to. We have gotten some teases as to, spoiler alert, just like in WandaVision, we actually think it was Mephisto all along. But
yes,
but that character has had an unfortunate history with Spider-Man in relatively recent history, although when you think about it, it's not that, recent anymore. It has been around for a long time. We're talking, Civil War times, Marvel's Civil War times. So it seems like that particular story and the One More Day story seems to be coming to a head, or some sort of adjustment or resolution to it seems to be coming as part of Spencer's story. And we're also getting the culmination of all of the subplots that Spencer has been carrying forward, for good or for ill. And when I say for ill, it seems like he has completely crowded the story with so many bad guys and factions that it's overstuffed, and it in my opinion just served to pad the story along. Mm-hmm. Maybe he needed to get this to 100 issues. Maybe I think that's what it comes out to with all those miniseries. I wonder if that's what his story was. I wonder if it was in fact a 100-issue run. I'm curious to do the math on that and to do the fact checking on that to see if in fact he was able to do a 100-issue run, given the various miniseries that he's issued as in addition to the regular Amazing Spider-Man series. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, but ultimately, getting back to the story, at least in my opinion, it's a little overstuffed. But we do see in this book how Spencer is moving these players into position, and it all starts with the premiere of Mary Jane's movie that she is apparently now completed with Mysterio. And anyone who watched the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon knows where I'm getting that particular way of saying the character's name from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also during the course of this, which you kind of knew this was going to happen, because so Mary Jane and Peter's on the red carpet, and Cage and McKnight comes and swoops up Mary Jane. Does not set off Peter's spider sense, by the way, which is kind of curious on that front. But I guess since he was trying to reform, maybe that's the case. We don't know yet. And to come to find out that Mary Jane still had not told at that point that she was working with Mysterio during her Amazing Mary Jane run, which was a pretty decent book, by the way. You should check it out if you get a chance. But it doesn't matter because it all comes out in the wash. Because not that far long later, that's when the folks start attacking, and then Mysterio reveals himself. And Peter finds out that Mary Jane's been working with Mysterio.
Right. So much like a Marvel wedding, it seems that Marvel movie premieres are also places for big villain attacks.
Yeah, indeed. Not just one, but two apparently. Because a couple of different of the Sinister War.
Yeah, I was about to say not two villains, mind you. That's not
factions.
What Roddykat means.
Right.
Actual factions, actual groups of villains. Two of them specifically set attacks on this particular movie's release.
Right. And by the way, if you are checking out the show notes, there is an article in the clickbait section which goes over all of the players in said factions that are involved in Sinister War. So you can definitely check that out at your leisure. But yeah, so all of that to say is like, this was actually a not bad issue, but yeah, there are, like Agent 70 said, there are a lot of folks in play here, and maybe that's gonna change going into this, but I kind of doubt it, and I'm really, really hoping that whatever Spencer is doing is going to play out how he wants you and pays off well, because doing all of this and it doesn't pay off is not going to be great. That's going to be a real bummer. And this run's kind of already been kind of dragging in spots.
Well, that's my point. I think that a lot of those arcs really didn't have to develop all of these factions.
Right.
We understand that he has an affinity for Boomerang, so that's so it's no surprise that the whatchamacallit, what are the foes? The superior foes.
Yeah.
Yeah, superior foes of Spider-Man. No surprise that they eventually make their appearance, but the superior foes are, I guess the expected, but there are literally two more factions. Like, why are they here? We don't need all these characters. We really don't. And I understand maybe they just want to have a big book that has big splash pages and big group shots, and that's fine. But ultimately, as Roddykat said, this entire run on Amazing Spider-Man has dragged for too long and in too many places for us to ignore. Where if you went through our backlog of shows, our back catalog, that is not our backlog, unless you're behind, then it's a backlog. But our back catalog of shows, if you went through them, you would hear or see us kind of start to complain about Spencer's run, let's say within the last year.
I would argue last 6 months.
Further?
Yeah, no, I was 6 months.
Oh no, but in terms of the last year, for the last year we started. I think I started to complain over the last year, like, where are we going with this? Why is this taking so long?
Right.
And I think it started to amplify over the last 6 months because we were getting that that fortune telling gadget. That whole storyline,
right?
The clairvoyant thing, where that took forever. So, but that sets up another faction of another group in the Sinister War.
Right.
So, Spencer, I hope is able to, pulls off what he wants to pull off, and I hope it's worth it.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. But it's taken some time to get here. This wasn't the worst first issue of a little mini series, so it's definitely piqued my interest, and I want to see where this goes. But it took a long time for us to get here.
Yeah, true. So, and I don't think we have that much longer next for now, but yeah, here we are. So we can move right along to another.
Oh, and whatchamacallit, did you think of Passenger 57 at the end on the last page? You know,
I did not,
there's
but
a bit, yeah, there's a bit where, because Doctor Strange actually has a role to play in the bookend parts of this issue, and there is, it's a play on where Mephisto has been
right.
or was trapped at one point. So I immediately had thoughts of Passenger 57, something that Wesley Snipes says in Passenger 57 on that one.
And now that you say that, yes, I can see it, but yeah, I didn't think about it when I was reading it. So, um, let's move it on, shall we? To
Absolutely.
wait, did you read? Let's go to Iron Man 10, actually.
Okay, Iron Man 10. It's written by Christopher Cantwell, with art by Cafu, with colors by Frank Darmada, and letters are by VC's Joe Caramagna, our favorite paisan.
So silly. Indeed. But I actually kind of enjoyed this issue, and not saying that the issues
It's
previously.
offbeat. It's an offbeat
Yes.
issue.
Yes. Actually, kind of in a part way, because I even say in my notes is like Tony stuck in the void, because so basically a couple of issues back, Tony gets whisked away by Korvac, who's the main villain of this arc, or this last arc, away from away from his team that he's been, which includes Patsy Walker, Hellcat, and Rhodey, and a few other people. You know, it was definitely kind of a D list of. It's not even Force Works. I shouldn't say that. I like Force Works, but
I was gonna say, that's saying something. I mean, Century. You know, where are you? We barely knew you.
well, thank goodness he's not around. But that's beside the point. But yeah, so they were chasing down Korvac, who's the villain, and they were off to Galactus's ship. But Tony got whisked away a couple of issues back, and they kind of not really touched upon it up until this issue. So we find out that Tony's on some planet, and we come to find out he's not the only one. There's actually a bunch of people on this island who had been mysteriously taken away from where they were, almost like they were pruned, and end up on this planet. I almost thought that Elias was going to show up, but we kind of get not necessarily Elias, but we kind of get someone that's taking not necessarily a similar point, but also, and as Agent 70 will appreciate this, maybe a little bit of Attack on Titan.
Definitely, although it's spoiled by the cover.
Yes,
right? It's spoiled by the cover. It's one of those things where, you know, the text on the cover is meant to draw you in, but it's a spoiler. And I'll give you a real quick note. Hold your thoughts on the story. I wanted to note that I went and got my comics yesterday on Wednesday, and I did not pull the regular Iron Man cover.
Okay.
So when I read this, I wasn't immediately spoiled, because I got the Captain America 80th anniversary variant cover. It's Captain America in like armor. It's drawn by John Cassidy, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's it's due to this cover that I was not spoiled until I started reading the issue. And so when I saw in this issue that Iron Man had to scavenge some power from a dormant piece of tech that was laying on the planet side, I was like, wait, that's, spoiler alert, although it is spoiled on the cover, right? Spoiler alert, it's Ultimo. I'm like, that's an Ultimo piece.
Right.
Right? Why doesn't Stark recognize this? He just doesn't, it doesn't click his head.
Right. To be fair, it was in
Because
pieces, and he was kind of already discombobulated.
Right. So I recognized it right away. So, without the benefit of that cover, I was like, oh, so that's where they're going with this.
Right.
But, he meets some other, and I kind of appreciate Cantwell's kind of walk down memory lane here with some of the characters that have been marooned on this, far distant planet. with kind of a who, not even a who's who. It's like a Z list who's who of some of these characters that Tony Stark has run across in his adventures and travels.
Right.
And they're the ones who are marooned on this planet as well.
There was definitely a who for me on one or two particular cases. I'm like, huh, who is this? I mean, I know one of them, but like, what?
Well, the main one, right? The main one we kind of understand and we recognize who that is, but everyone else, no one's gonna blame you for being like, who?
Right.
So
and with one of the other characters whose last name, or I assume his last name is Yar, which apparently they are Kree, but I was thinking Yar like in Tasha Yar from Next Generation.
Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
So I even have that in my notes. I also make a Yar's Revenge joke, but that's whatever. But yeah, we see another I guess villain from Tony's not so great rogues gallery, who again going back to our Loki talk, kind of comes off, and there's a reference here to this. Alan Watts is referenced here, which Alan Watts was a I guess he was a scientist, philosopher, or some kind of thing, and he had a theory about time theory, I guess, and that has come up in Loki. But here's a direct Alan Watts reference in this book, which was kind of funny. So I was like, and with what we were saying, it was like, this kind of seemed like the Void and the Void mixed with Attack on Titan. So I was like, wow, somebody's been watching Loki apparently.
Sure.
So that kind of made this issue kind of fun on that note, especially like I said, coming off of watching Loki.
Exactly. Yeah, I kind of, the Attack on Titan vibes are really, it's not really just because Ultimo is tall.
No, it is definitely more than that.
It's not just because of that. So
there's a pretty direct.
I not a jump scare, but definitely I was startled by that page. I was like, whoa.
Right.
Really? Whoa. So.
Right. I was like, oh, I didn't think they were going to do that. And yeah, well, there you go. So it was a very good it was a very interesting read this week. And apparently on side note, which I guess is going to come back later, we found out that Tony may be back on the wagon again because Tony has a history of
oh, you mean back off the wagon?
Back off the wagon. Yeah, I always get that term mixed up. He's had an alcohol problem and
an addiction
problem. Yes, an addiction problem, and looks like it's going to come back into play, which I believe we saw word on at probably in some article at some point.
Right.
But
I think it's been part of the development of this Cantwell series also.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's pretty interesting. I also anyone who is a fan of Marvel vs. Capcom will appreciate that. It's something that we don't see that often, but Unibeam. Yes,
we did get a Unibeam out of this, and I definitely did say that when it got brought up. So yeah, but that's Iron Man number 10, and we can move on to something else if you got something.
Let's see. How about we'll do the books that we have in common, and then we'll go. I mean, because this is a somewhat of a lighter week.
Yes.
So we don't have that many books to really run through. So let's cover Champions number 8. It's written by Danny Lore with art by Luciano Vecchio, colors by Federico Blee, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. So this made me chuckle throughout reading it because it felt like something that we would, as novice criminals, would be doing, which is taking our cues from movies. And essentially what they're doing is taking their cues from heist movies as they are going through their mission to infiltrate Roxxon. And the members of the Champions are all coming to grips with how they play with the parts of the plan, that they each play, and trying to figure out how to deal with complications that come up as parts of the plan kind of go awry.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like as I say in my notes, like the whole because we knew the way a certain part of that plan was going to go off was going to end up in a kind of a fight, and that did well, and there's a discussion at the very least, and that did happen at the beginning of this book, but it kind of got settled, sorta, in a way, until the plan starts. The plan does start unraveling a little bit, and they have to kind of readjust it. But then it turns into almost like a Ocean's 8 type thing, or Ocean's 11 type thing with the planning, because they do even mention like something about a spy movie night or heist night or something like that, where they got the plan together or something. But yeah, it was a good book, and at the end we see one of the team in a predicament that they may or may not be able to get themselves out of, but I guess we'll see next issue.
Right, and it's fun. I really appreciate that that Danny Lore has decided to focus on this group. It's kind of the core group of champions,
yes. Mm-hmm.
And it really tightens the storytelling. I understand that they wanted to broaden the appeal of the champions and really kind of do what Hickman did and create like this gigantic team of Avengers. They created a gigantic team of champions, but we kind of lost focus on kind of this core group of champions. And I really like that we're down to, Kid Nova, Spidey, Miles Spidey, Riri Williams, Ms. Marvel,
mm-hmm.
and Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nice little core group of characters that they can really focus on here, because at the moment we don't have a Nova book. At the moment we don't have a Ms. Marvel book. So really the only character in this book that has a solo book is Miles.
Right.
So it's nice to see these characters getting some run, getting some play in a book of their own, outside of maybe guest appearances somewhere else. So it's really, it's really, I think, important that this book focuses on this core group of champions.
Right. And that's not to say that the others are not around. Like we've seen a couple of the other ones in past issues, but yeah, the fact that the focus is on the main, the quote unquote main group here, it has helped it some.
Right. I think it's helped with the book's focus, and I think it makes it a lot easier to follow.
Right. Cool. That being said, we can move on.
What's next?
I guess
I was about
Excalibur.
to say, yeah, that's the only other book I think that we have in common.
Okay. So
All right.
Excalibur number 22.
Yes, Excalibur 22. It's written by Tini Howard with art by Marcus Toe, colors by Eric Arciniega, and letters by VC's Ariana Maher. Take it away, Roddykat.
Oh, you know what? I totally forgot my notes on this. So, basically, we start off. Let me go and open up this book real quick. But basically, we start off with Excalibur in Overworld, or Otherworld, excuse me. And I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so they are with Beast, if I'm not mistaken, and they are trying to get some soil samples or something. I'm not gonna go through like beat for beat, but just kind of goes off into another thing. Yeah, so that's where they're starting off, and then they get met by the sheriff of whatever sheriff of one of the other places, and basically get told that, hey, you might want to get to the Citadel because Saturnines got folks there, and they are not pleased with mutants, a lot of them, and they won't be afraid to tell you, given the events of the last few arcs of the last few Sort of X. I mean, yeah, X of Swords, and pretty much everything that's happened since then and around then. So they're not happy with the encroachment of the mutants coming out of that. On the other side of that, Pete Wisdom gets brought back to life, and he's there with Megan apparently, and she kind of brings him up to speed as to what happened. Which I don't remember the latter part of Excalibur, because I think I was only reading like when the book first started, and I know the book went through some changes of folks and things like that. So I don't know their relationship was as close as it sounds when this was going on, because I know Pete did kind of have a thing with Kitty or Kate at the time, but regardless,
Yes.
Yes,
they definitely did. They actually had their own miniseries.
right.
That was called Pride and Wisdom.
Huh, okay. And I think Megan kind of had a little thing with Kurt, but that's neither here nor there, because like I said, we definitely know that they were all on the team together. But anyway, so Megan kind of apprises him with what's been happening in the last couple of issues with the UK closing the borders to mutants, basically.
Right, and the reason why he was killed, why he was sacrificed, because that was, while we know that mutants are, have a way of being resurrected, it was still shocking to me to see that they would actually go that far,
right,
to do what they needed to do magically, in terms of spoiler alert, in terms of what they want to do regarding Morgan Le Fay. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty jarring to see. Because that was part of the Hellfire Gala crossover. That was the last issue, and in this issue, we have some of the ramifications of that, and also we get a tale of a branch of a sub team of an away team. Talk about bringing Star Trek back in. Right? Nice. We get an away team of Excalibur running around in Otherworld with Captain Britain. Trying to figure out what Merlin is up to and what's up his butt, and we get some more of that.
Yeah, and before that, we kind of get the Saturnine and Merlin and all of them kind of having a powwow in the Citadel about like I said, the encroachment of mutants, like I said earlier, and that kind of led this away team to go scouting around Merlin's spot. The way they did, and of course there's a confrontation there for a second, which they kind of quickly get out of. Now, I don't know about you and how versed you are in Excalibur, but when they got to the escape and got to the underground level, and they saw that their getaway vehicle, did you think anything Excalibur related was it?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
It's not like it's the Hogwarts Express, so
true, but kind of similar.
I was completely gone.
Right. Well, so if I remember correctly, during one part of Excalibur, they had this thing, I believe it was called Widget or something, that I think turned into a train or something it was something. There was a train involved where they ended up going around the multiverse or something for a minute, and I was like, wait, is this that train? And are they going to do that again? And that's not really being the case. So I was thinking. Or maybe it could be, and we don't know, because we just saw them taking off. But I don't believe that is the case here. But the other side of that, like I said, we go back to Pete Wisdom, who's kind of been bopping around Krakoa, and apparently he's got the band back together of a team that I know very little about. Because apparently there were some folks that he used to work with that are, I don't know if this is a new thing or this is like a retcon of these characters.
This was my my turn for who?
Yeah. Oh, it was mine too. Because like I said, I don't know any of these characters, but I know the name Strike. That's about it. But Pete's Wisdom's involved in these other four people that he finds out about, and they get resurrected and are apparently mutants now, if they always ever were. Mm-hmm. And he kind of gets them back together, and what they're going to do, we don't know. Well, I guess we kind of know. I suspect we kind of know because it has to do with the closing of the borders.
Right. So there's one thing that on the cliffhanger page of this book,
Mm-hmm.
which really caught me by surprise.
Yes.
And I wanted to run it by you as someone who is a little bit more well versed in Excalibur lore than I.
Mm-hmm.
Has this character ever reared his head in the pages of Excalibur before?
If he did, I don't remember honestly.
Because I was definitely taken by surprise. I was like, "What?"
I mean, given the name of the book and given the illusions outside of that, and we did just say Merlin, you could speculate that, yeah, probably. But I honestly don't remember.
Got it.
And at a certain time, I got off of the book. Like I said, I was there at the beginning of the book, and I was there for a good minute. But I think once it got past the whole time space thing with the train, I might have fallen off of it from then. So if it happened in time after then I'm not sure.
Right. I mean, if I consulted my own personal collection of Excalibur, it's so, scattered and random that, probably having to deal solely with maybe some crossovers that, I wouldn't be able to tell you too much about the series as a whole.
Right.
So,
the only thing I could say is I've probably said it on this show before that, you know what, I've been meaning to go back and read those old issues because I enjoyed Excalibur, especially in the beginning. Like I said, when the team changed and Pete Wisdom came on, whom I didn't really care too much about, I think I might have fallen off of that.
right.
But outside of that, yeah, I enjoyed Excalibur back in the day. It was fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And apparently we on the I don't know, yeah, on this coming soon page, we have I won't spoil it, but we have someone else who we've seen lately, who was actually at the Hellfire Gala, who's kind of in a couple of different places. Apparently still on Earth also, who's around for some odd reason, and I guess we'll find out what that reason is. Yeah, next issue or whenever. That being said, I guess that's it. So we're going to rapid fire.
You got it. I'm about to spin it up.
I ain't got time to bleed.
Rapid fire, cuz.
Alrighty.
You want to go ahead and go?
Yeah, I don't have too much left. My first book is Thor number 15. It's written by Donny Cates with art by Michelle Bandini, who's a dude. Inks by Michelle Bandini and Elisabetta D'Amico. So it's a Italian art team. Colors by Matt Wilson and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. So we got a bunch of Italian folks on this book. So this book is the first issue in a 3-part story that Donny Cates is calling Revelations. And we're going to see, I guess, presumably, the payoff for what has been teased for the better part of this entire series, right? So we're 15 issues in now, and some of the things that have been teased in this series may be coming to a head. Namely, the fact, and this is a minor spoiler for the first 15 issues of this book, because it's been a dangling plot thread that has been picked up here and there over the course of the 15 issues. So I'll ring the spoiler bell for this. But Mjolnir has not been obedient to Thor. Not necessarily that he's unworthy, and it comes to light what Thor's thinking on this is. And he actually consults with Captain America, and it's, there's a really interesting sequence here where the rest of the Avengers are fighting some otherworldly menace. I kind of recognize these monsters, and all of the Avengers are they have their hands full, and it's interesting because Carol is here. Carol Danvers is here, and if she cuts loose, she could take care of all these monsters. But because of Thor's particular power set, he's able to take them all out at once so that he and Captain America can go share a drink and talk. But it's not before what is on the cover actually happens in the book.
I was gonna ask.
It's out. It's not in the context that you think it is, but it does happen. But but ultimately, Cap and Thor do have a chance to have a tete-a-tete over some drinks, and what we find out is Thor's theory, at least, as to why Mjolnir has been disobedient and has not been doing what Thor has wanted, and has proven to sometimes be super heavy and also be able to be lifted by other people who are not necessarily worthy, like Loki. So, we're going to find out in the next 3 issues, in the next 2 issues now, 3 issues including this one, what Cates has planned for this, for this twist in Thor's story with Mjolnir. And last for me, because we've already covered all my other books, is Mouse Guard, the Owl Hen Caregiver, and Other Tales #1. The story and art are by David Peterson, the creator of Mouse Guard. And it is so good to see him do the entire book, because he's had other creators, not chip in, but take their stab at these characters and this world of Mouse Guard. And it's, though they were good, I did buy the trade paperback of those in hardcover form. They're really good, but it's still great to see Peterson come in and do some work in Mouse Guard. I actually got the soft cover, the comic book version, the single issue version of this, and it's $5 for this kind of square format. And so it's just a little bit more expensive than a regular comic book nowadays, but it's really cool. It has 3 stories in it, and the 3 stories, the 3 short stories, have a central thread about service and a concern about the well-being of others. So the story definitely struck a chord with me. And I definitely appreciate it. It is definitely a potential click of the week for me.
All right. Yes. If it has not been made apparent, and you've been with this show for a while, Agent 70 is a big Mouse Guard fan.
Absolutely.
So that's what's up. So even when we talked about it, what was it, a couple of weeks when a couple of weeks ago when this was announced. This was coming out. Agent 70 had a big grin on his face because he didn't know, and that was enjoyable to see.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like I said, the Mouse Guard is one of those things. Like, I've always seen it, and it's like, yeah, that's a pretty looking book, but I've never read it. So, but that being said, we're gonna push on to. Sorry, folks, I'm a little off and it's hot right now. To my books, so we can kind of push that away. Spider-Woman, number 13, is my first book of the night. It is written by Carla Pacheco, art by Perry Perez, color artist Frank Darmada, and the letters by VC's Travis Lanham. This is a particular click of the week for me. Because this was just a fun read. Basically, as I say in my notes, someone's throwing everyone and a horse at Jess to get some data she got off of the High Evolutionary. We do come to find out who that person is. It's not, we kind of find out who that person is, and it's somebody who's been in the book in this past volume, let's just say. Also, for some strange reason, Jess could channel her Venom Blast through her feet somehow, and I saw that happen, and I'm like, when could she ever do that?
I was about to say, now we're going Laura Kinney X-23 Wolverine there.
Yeah, kind of. Because a couple of panels, but like I said, it was like, oh, okay, that's kind of strange, but all right, it's working, sure, whatever. Like it was a definitely action heavy issue for this one up until you get to the end of it. And I would say, speaking of Passenger 57, but the only difference is like there's definitely some planes that show up and get gets battled on, or whatever the case may be during the course of this. So it's not directly a Passenger 57 reference. But yeah, but you should definitely check it out if you're up on that book. Transformers number 32. Written by Brian Ruckley, art by Anna Malkova and Angel Hernandez, colors by David Garcia Cruz, and letters by Jake M. Wood. So, last issue, there's this one Autobot named Jumpstart who already had teleportation capabilities, but Perceptor was kind of experimenting on her to, I guess, extend that range. And it ended up going out of control, and she ended up jumping from place to place in what we thought out of the universe, or from alternate universes. But what we come to find out, possibly in this issue, is that it wasn't alternate universes. It seemed like it's through time. So she ended up jumping through to a time where things weren't going as well. Not that things were going well at this point, but things weren't going as well for the Autobots, let's just say. And she meets gets a little bit of help in basically getting back to presumably where she belongs, but not without some things happening. And not without her bringing somebody back with her who I honestly thought was Starscream's ghost, but was like, no, Starscream's still alive at this point, so it can't be that. But at the end of this book, I think she ends up back on Cybertron, and she brings someone with her who was also lost in whatever is a teleportation stream or she ended up going into. But there is that. Next up is Way of X number 4, written by Cy Spurrier, art by Bob Quinn, color art is Java Tartaglia, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. So Kurt and Legion are still on whatever quest to figure out this non-religion that they're trying to put together for Krakoa. And I guess they're studying the 3 laws to kind of get some ideas from there. They end up on Araco, and we get a nice little appearance by Dust, who we haven't seen in a second, but always good to see that character. But not before. Well, one, it starts off with some story that this other new character is telling, and kind of leads us back to some events from last issue that kind of happened. But the reason why they ended up on Araco was because of the events from last issue and what happened to this character. But that kind of gives way to some other things that you should probably read about going into this, and a little adventure is going on to, let's just say, with this new character and an old character, an old duplicitous character that's kind of fallen from grace in this version of the X-Men in a way. So, and of course, you can't have Legion without his dad, Professor X, showing up, and that kind of a thing that just happened in a part. Actually, get to see a part of Professor X that we haven't seen in a good minute. I'll say that. So if that is some interest to you, you may want to check that out. But my last book is rounding out the X corner for this week in X Corp number 3. So X Corp is trying to get things together to launch this floating platform that they already have out there. But there's another part to this that they're doing a launch for. There's also this big tech conference that Warren Worthington and Monet are at, and meeting people and doing things with, and some shenanigans kind of happen in the course of that. One includes a person that was I guess from last issue during the Hellfire Gala that Monet's trying to straighten out, but doesn't necessarily go the way she thinks it does. And this launch, speaking of, kind of goes a interesting way, let's just say, to end off this book. Or actually doesn't go off in a way like it was supposed to. And there's also another thing with Jamie Madrox and his familiar ties and some other stuff with him that's going on in this book. So I don't know what is X-Corp's big move here outside of, you know, bringing back X-Corp, but this is what we got so far. And that, folks, is it for me, which actually, wait, before I say anything else, before we do that, I forgot to give the creative team of this, which consists of Tinny Howard as the writer, Valentine Delandro as the artist, Sunny Go as the color artist, and VC's Clayton Cowles as the letterer. And that, folks, is it. We can go on to Clicks of the Week.
Clicks of the week.
We do have. Wait, didn't do his? I don't think he did. But we do have at least one. Yes, we do have at least one click of the week from one of our absent hosts, and I don't know if this was a surprise or not, but it's for Mouse Guard, the Owl Hen Caregiver and Other Tales #1 from Dirt.
Absolutely, and I second that. So that is also my click of the week: Mouse Guard, the Owlhen Caregiver, and Other Tales #1.
Alrighty then, nice and neat and simple. Cool. For me, I think I might actually go. That Iron Man book was interesting, but I might just go with. I'm just gonna go with Spider-Woman #13. I think it was a fun book. Many dad jokes. Lots of action, and like I said, I can give or take action in a book as long as you know, some things actually happen, whether narratively or not. But yeah, it was a good read. And don't think we got anything for Tim, which we check again. We do not. So we can move on to the news section, but first, let's hit an ad, please.
Alrighty, our first ad of the evening of this show is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise including their custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, please go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
And we start off with the cinematic news, as we do every day about this time. So we're going to try to run through this as quickly as we can. First off, Black Panther 2 star confirms multiple rewrites. Says new script still needs work, apparently. So Angela Bassett, Queen Ramonda, reveals that the script for the long-awaited Marvel Cinematic Universe sequel is still undergoing rewrites despite under production beginning in late June. Quote, I don't know what it's going to look like at all, Bassett told Entertainment Tonight about her return to Wakanda as Queen Ramonda. But there's been about 5 incarnations of the script, and I hear another one's coming. Marvel fans can rest easy, though, as Marvel Studios is known for putting its films through heavy rewrites throughout production, which, yeah, has been true. Also, I'm looking at the shirt that Shuri got on, and I'm thinking a thing, and I'm sitting here like, okay, wait, she's got on a t-shirt. I mean, is that a t-shirt under a t-shirt, or is that showing some things that's not? But Anyway, we're gonna move past that for this picture because I don't think I've ever noticed that. Move right along. You are muted.
Apologies, I thought I had clicked to unmute. Lupita Nyong'o's workout video goes viral as Black Panther 2 continues filming. So, she shared her New York workout session before commencing shooting on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So this is a post that she shared on Instagram. And she's seen in the video working out in New York back in June, and thanks to the cameras rolling on the Black Panther follow-up, it has gone viral again. Okay?
Yes, it's a cute video, and so is she. So, moving right along. Marvel celebrates Black Widow's MCU history with solo Disney Plus posters. Marvel Studios' long-awaited Black Panther, now it got me doing it. Black Widow solo film is out, and to mark the occasion, Disney Plus had added a new set of solo posters highlighting Natasha Romanoff's history in the MCU, thus far from Iron Man 2 to Avengers Endgame. So, and if you are checking out the article, well, if you're checking out the video, you can see said posters of the various iterations of Natasha and all of her looks during her outings. It's an amusing change from Iron Man 2 to going to Endgame, let's just say. But yeah. There you go. That is that. You can see that in the show notes. Next up.
Black Widow made $60 million from Disney Plus viewers during its opening weekend, including both of us.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Disney Plus has been shy previously about divulging sales for premiere access movies like Mulan, but it's now eager to brag. As AV Club reported, Disney revealed that Marvel blockbuster Black Widow raked in more than $60 million in estimated revenue solely from customers paying $30 each for premiere access. That's more than a quarter of the roughly $215 million Disney expected to make from all sources, including U.S. and international box office sales. The company also bragged that Black Widow was the largest U.S. box office opening during the COVID-19 pandemic, just besting F9. That wasn't difficult, though, given that movie theaters have routinely struggled to attract viewers when they weren't dealing with widespread closures. Okay.
Yeah. So, there you go. And I would imagine at this point probably a little bit more than that. But yeah, there you go. Florence Pugh didn't know Yelena would return in the MCU so soon. So apparently Florence Pugh was surprised to learn that her Black Widow character Yelena Belova would return to the MCU so quickly following the movie's release. Actually kind of spoiler alerts for Black Widow, by the way, I guess. Because yeah, as we saw in the post-credit scene, yeah, we do see that Yelena will return in I think in another upcoming project very soon, or very soonish, I guess. But let's see. But yeah, and like this article says, the post-credit scene does take place after Endgame and picks up and picks up with Yelena and where she's been going on, and we also, like I said, we also find out where she's going to end up next. If you're, you know what, I will not say just in case you didn't know already and haven't seen Black Widow, because I know it's still kind of sort of fresh. Like, yeah, spoilers have kind of already been out there for since then, but you know, we'll leave that for some folks. But next up.
Right. Similarly, for my next news story, the Black Widow director explains the significance of Taskmaster's character.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not going to completely spoil this. I know that Roddykat has put this up for everyone to see, this article up for everyone to see, but I would rather not spoil this because,
Yeah, you don't have to go full far in it.
right, essentially, Black Widow director Kate Shortland says that, the significance of the reveal of the character of Taskmaster is really about and I'm paraphrasing here because I just don't want to spoil the whole thing, is that because it is so soon, is that it is about Natasha confronting the red that's on her ledger. That is how this character is tied into the story.
Which, in a way, kind of is no surprise because that's pretty much every other time she's shown up in an MCU movie. She's mentions the red in her letter, but
exactly. So that's why I think that's the best way to explain the reveal, the way it was executed and written.
Yep, and I believe there is another article on that note in the clickbait section that also has to do with Taskmaster and the characterization of from the movie to comics, I guess, or from comics to the movie rather. So if you're interested, you can definitely check that out. Ant-Man 3 bringing back original movie villain Corey Stoll. So I guess Yellow Jacket's coming back. And it says, yes, that the Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania, the Phase 4 film, will be Paul Rudd's third solo outing as Scott Lang, alongside Evangeline Lilly as Hope, and probably, Hank Pym's probably going to be there, and Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet. According to this, is also going to be returning. In addition, Scott's daughter Cassie will be recast as Catherine Newton. So, but and this is actually also kind of sort of it might be a spoiler for Loki episode 5, because if I'm not mistaken, that is where we saw the Yellow Jacket helmet in the Void. And this article kind of alludes to that just a little bit, sorta, but not really. Actually, yeah, it does kind of mention that directly. So there you go. Yellow Jacket's probably back in Quantumania. For what reason, we don't know, but I will find out at some point. Next up,
Loki's knife flip was a complete accident, says Tom Hiddleston. So, in a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, Hiddleston shed some light on just where Loki's affinity for knives and his apparent skills with flipping them comes from. So, he says in the interview that he caught the knives by chance, and he has a full quote in this article in this interview from Entertainment Weekly, but essentially that he was still, the cameras happened to still be rolling, and he wasn't doing anything interesting, so he just flipped the knives and caught them by chance. And they are knives for show, so he wouldn't have cut his hands up otherwise. But he happened to catch them, and all of a sudden that became part of his shtick, as it were.
Yes, and as we know, love is like a dagger, as especially as that last episode had gone through. Or rather, the final episode had gone through, also bringing that back around. Next up, Loki writer says that an emotional support gator inspired alligator Loki's look. So someone has okay. Anyway, so this goes back to the last episode of Loki, where alligator Loki shows up, and apparently, let's see, Michael Waldron recently spoke with Marvel.com and revealed that alligator Loki is not a character from the comics. Waldron may have created the character, but another Loki writer, Eric Martin, took to Twitter this week to introduce the world to Wally, the real-life visual reference for alligator Loki. Says, while Loki is wholly a creation of Michael Waldron's weird mind, we did have a real-world visual reference for him. Meet Wally, Martin wrote. And the tweet includes a YouTube video all about Wally, an emotional support gator, which you can check out if you're looking at the article, or if you check out the article in the show notes. It says we were talking about how we want to meet different versions of Loki in the show. But Waldron explained to Marvel.com, and I was just like, there should be an alligator Loki, and it's like, well, why? Because he's green. And he also added, it's so stupid, but it also makes total sense. You almost have to take it seriously, like maybe he is a Loki. So, and the article kind of just goes on from there. So there you go, folks. That alligator that shows up is came from somewhere, just not the comics. Because I recall when we even talked about it, it was like, I don't remember there being an alligator Loki anywhere that I remember reading about. So there you go. Next up.
I was going to say that was new to me as well. Next up, Loki's lead writer, Michael Waldron, wants fans debating which version of Frog Thor is in episode 5. And I love this. That's cool. Yeah. Especially being familiar with both versions. So he stated that he wants fans to debate which version of Frog Thor appeared in episode 5 of the Loki show. Spoiler alert, again, if you're not caught up on Loki. So in Journey into Mystery, we see in a blink and you'll miss it moment, a frog version of Thor trapped in a jar, desperately trying to reach Mjolnir. And in the comics, Throg was originally a human named Simon Walterson, right? Which is part of the story of Thor being turned into a frog. Basically one begot the other in a sense. So it's interesting to see that Michael Waldron is not going to confirm which version it is. Just let the debate rage. Let the debate rage. He chooses violence.
He chose violence for sure. Exactly. Next up, though, new Loki report. Oh, okay. So we were talking about this. I alluded to this earlier. New Loki report hints at Tom Hiddleston returning to the MCU very soon. And did I? Oh Lord, I should have taken this out. But regardless, so this is going to come up again. So if it does, I don't know what's wrong with me lately. But a new report, according to the Hollywood Reporter, suggests that Hiddleston will be reprising his role in the upcoming Doctor Strange 2, which is due out next year. This is the first time Hiddleston has been linked to the film, though the report says that Marvel hasn't confirmed the news. That is a very important take. Also, I was going to go back and say that usually after a show is over with, like Loki or WandaVision or Falcon and Winter Soldiers, the writers and head writers get very, very chatty. So there's probably going to be some more stuff in the next week or two about that, things we will not or may not even know. But anyway, as folks know, Doctor Strange 2 is called the Multiverse of Madness, so it would stand to reason given what happened in this last episode of Loki, and this is me saying that, not the article. Given that makes a little more sense, because stuff is messed up, and I've seen a lot of tweets of people like Doctor Strange as everything from Loki goes down, and seeing him in various states of, exasperated or something. But so yeah, we'll see if that actually comes true when the movie comes out, or Marvel actually confirms it at some point. Next
up, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, 2, and 3 writer and director James Gunn publicly thanked Marvel Studios for fulfilling his now 6-year-old wish with the latest episode episode 5 of the Loki Disney Plus show. His wish, quote, "My wish from 2015, thanks for finally delivering Marvel Studios, for delivering Marvel Studios," Gunn tweeted. This was in reference to a tweet he shared in January of 2015 that read, "Whoa, can't wait to see the Thanos copter in the MCU." In episode 5 of Loki, the Thanos copter, spoiler alert, does in fact appear, albeit completely trashed and trapped inside the void.
Yup. Marvel seemingly so I'm going to take this one and the next one, by the way. Marvel seemingly confirms spoiler is a Loki variant, except for the fact that it's been debunked. So apparently there was a tweet from Marvel Studios Canada that said that a high-ranking member of the Time Variance Authority could be another one of the series Loki variants. And on said picture, or on said tweet, was a picture of B-15. What is it? Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now. Oh, and that tweet is gone. But it was Hunter B-15 and a couple of actually, well, I think it was B-15, maybe, and somebody else. There was a couple other people here. Let me see if this other article mentions it. Which I thought I did. Hold on. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah, it was Hunter B-15, and a couple other things, and Eric Martin, who's one of the writers on the show, basically said like one of these is not like the other. I'm paraphrasing there, but there is that. So yeah, like I said, that B-15 was a variant, Loki variant, has been debunked. So cut that, folks. Next up,
thanks to our very own Tim Dog 98.
well, I was about to say we could skip this, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, because we talked about it.
Exactly. Because I had intended to use this article instead of the other one that I apparently put back in the lineup for some reason.
Gotcha. But I'll just go quickly and say that again, there is a report that Loki is set to appear in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So that is the report, and we will see if this comes true.
Yeah, and shout out to Tim, like you said. Actually, go ahead and take the next one. Sure. Mute it.
Richard E. I was about to say, I double-clicked it, and it went back to mute. Richard E. Grant already has a classic Loki/Crokey spin-off worked out. So, the two characters are so popular that Grant has even come up with plans to give the world what it wants and put Crokey. It's really a Gatoroki or
right, it's not a crocodile, right?
Exactly, it's not a crocodile. It's not Crokey. And classic Loki together in their own spin-off series. In a recent interview with Collider, Grant discussed the remarkable reaction to his characters and his character and performance on the show. So he put this plan together and worked it out.
Yeah, and apparently, I guess he and Tom Hiddleston was talking about something, and Tom Hiddleston was right and he was wrong about something, as this article kind of goes on to say, about, I guess, how the portrayal, or I guess the classic Loki portrayal was gonna end up. So, there you go. Next up, Loki star Tara Strong reveals why she loves Miss Minute's fan theories. Because I guess there has been fan theories about it. It's been Miss Minutes all along. To borrow from WandaVision. Which, yeah, those was cute. So if y'all don't know who Tara Strong is, you definitely do know her voice, because she has voiced y'all's childhoods. And part of ours. Or most of ours, might as well go ahead and say. She says here, I have to say... Oh wait, so what's wrong with fans? She particularly loves fan speculation that Miss Minutes could secretly be behind the entire TVA. She says, quote, I have to say, I just love the fact that they think she's behind it all, Strong revealed in an interview. Because I've always loved playing these cute little girl characters who's also so powerful. She alludes back to Powerpuff Girls. And she says, we can go back to the Powerpuff Girls, these kindergarten to save the world before bedtime. I think it promotes girls and friends of girls to see the strength in girls and female characters. So, in fact, this thing she's behind it has just tickled me so much. And who knows? I mean, I don't know. We really can't say right now, although we do know right now. But I think it's been very fun to think that she's the mastermind behind everything. So there you go. Also, if you haven't checked out, and this is also going to be in the show notes, Tara Strong's tweet, which is from her TikTok of her in front of camera talking as Miss Minutes, which is a very much of a treat. I will dare say. So you should definitely check that out under the article that was just mentioned. But it was very cute. Well, and I'm sure it was a kind of a thirst track, folks. Let's be honest. In certain respects, I'm sure someone watched it as that. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Next up, though.
Next up, so the composer of the soundtrack to the Loki show, Natalie Holt, answered a tweet where a fan tweet that proposed the idea that she helm the music of a Star Wars project, and she responded with an "Oh my, yes please." So that is an indicator that she would in fact sign on to help compose the music for a Star Wars movie, a yet to be developed Star Wars movie, for a Star Wars project.
Yes, because we know there's a few out there. Next up. The Simpsons Loki short contains about 100 Marvel Easter eggs, according to the showrunner of The Simpsons. Have you watched that? You haven't? Yeah, neither have I.
I have not.
Yeah. That and the other one that was Star Wars focused. I haven't seen either one of those shorts, or haven't watched them. But apparently, the Easter eggs are just the post-credit sequences. Jean told the CBR. We have Odin's wolf in a shot, and it was definitely patterned on that wolf. Just all of the references to Marvel. We put on that list. We put on a list that publicly has that, and I think there's about 100 in it. Excuse me. So we put as many Easter eggs as we could in a 4.5 minute short, and that's on Disney Plus, so you can go check that out at your leisure. And also goes into what that short is about, which we won't get into in case you want to be going into it unspoiled. Next
up, following Howard the Duck's appearance on Marvel's What If, Leah Thompson announces her desire to shoot the Marvel Duck's next theatrical film. So she apparently sees hashtag Howard the Duck trending on Twitter in response to the newly released Marvel's What If trailer featuring a brief Howard cameo. She tweeted, "That's awesome. I love my duck. Hashtag What If I get to direct at Marvel reboot." So that's interesting. Obviously for those of you not in the know or too young to know, Leah Thompson did in fact star in the original Howard the Duck anthropomorphic movie.
Live action. She played Beverly, the love interest of Howard. That was well before furries came on. Let me stop. So yeah, there's that. I don't know. You know what? Does the world need another Howard the Duck? Maybe, maybe not. But I would, I'd watch it. Next up, though, Kevin Feige says Marvel is done with massive multi-movie deals. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, I know Agent 70 loves when people say that, has outlined a new...
He's just Kevin Feige!
has outlined a new strategy for hiring and maintaining actors in the MCU. During a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Feige explained that Marvel is moving away from massive multi-movie deals it once offered to the stars. Instead, he hinted that the talent will stay aboard and return for additional projects if they are enthusiastic about the universe they've become a part of, without needing an expansive contract. Quote, it varies project to project, cast to cast, Feige explained, reflecting on the sweeping talent deals previously inked by the likes of Chris Evans and Samuel L. Jackson. Really what we want are people that come in, are excited to be in the universe, are excited at the opportunity to do more things, as opposed to being locked into contractual obligations. Which, smart, sure. But at this point, who hasn't been in a Marvel movie outside of like you and me?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a list of kind of like the major stars that still haven't been in an MCU movie or even a comic book movie, period.
Or even a show.
Yeah, or even a show. I mean, I have to update that now. But ultimately, it's weird to hear this because we know that, they wanted to lock in these actors so that they wouldn't have to constantly renegotiate or recast. And the few times that they've had to recast is because they just didn't get along with the actor. That's really what it came down to. People like Ed Norton or Terrence Howard. They just couldn't work it out.
Yeah.
So, and I think it mostly turned out for the better.
I would say so.
Maybe it's weird to think about that. I guess they just weren't fans of the publicity that some of those statements got. Like, well, I've got this contract, and some of the actors not necessarily being fans of those long contracts that they signed.
Right.
So I guess that's the only reason for this.
Yeah, I guess
one of the big reasons.
One of them, exactly. Yeah, and it makes sense. And also, as I'm thinking about it, if you think about when they did those contracts, this was phase 1, so they wanted to get a lot off the ground and running, and people from place to place and movie to movie and things. There was a lot they was building in the phase 1 that possibly necessitated rather the long contracts, because they want people kind of going around from. They might want some people going around from one place to the other. Like Sebastian Stan's kind of been in a couple of things, granted mostly to the Cap stuff. I guess Samuel Jackson's Nick Fury has been the one that's been kind of moving around from movie to movie most of everybody. But now they don't have to do that anymore because everything is established, and that's not necessary. So it kind of makes sense on that front to me. I don't know, whatever else is involved in it and everything you said, it probably being the case also. Like, that is also a big enough reason. Next up, though. Catherine Hahn. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was about to say, I think this is my story, because I think you... Yeah. So, Catherine Hahn will return to the MCU as Agatha Harkness, hints Kevin Feige. So, in an interview with Rotten Tomatoes, Kevin Feige said, quote, someday soon, you will see Catherine Hahn in Knives Out 2 next, then maybe an assortment of other things, but within the MCU, it can't come soon enough. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, my guess is that she's going to show up in Doctor Strange. I
would believe that. That makes the most sense out of anything else that would, unless something else comes along, or she's in Loki season 2 for some odd reason, which I would doubt, So yeah, looking forward to that, because that character was great, or at least that character was great. Period. Full stop. Kevin Feige teases the rest of the MCU Phase 4 in a new video. So apparently, Feige teases what to expect from the rest of Phase 4. It took a wait. Teases what to expect from the rest of Phase 4. It took a little bit of time before the franchise restarted after Infinity Saga due to the coronavirus pandemic. So far, there's also been all the aforementioned Marvel TV shows and Black Widow. But apparently, to put this all into the thing, we got Black Panther coming up, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness coming up, Thor: Love and Thunder are all coming up, and Shang-Chi also in that slate. I don't know if this mentions that. Yes, it does. And Eternals also on that slate. So basically, Rotten Tomatoes has a video out there with Kevin Feige that talks about this. And you can check it out in the article. Next.
All right, so the 2021 Emmy nominations came out, and several of the streaming shows that are based on comic books and genre topics and ideas are actually nominated in the 2021 Emmys. There is a full list here in this article over at comicbook.com, but it is great to see some of our shows being acknowledged in the Emmys.
In fact, the one that's got the most nods was WandaVision.
Exactly. And well deserved. Yes. Well deserved, because as we were saying earlier, it is an incredible feat to pull off that kind of show Obviously given the backdrop of the times that it was released in, being home and during the pandemic, it was still just an incredible work.
Right. And shout out to Bobby Fish and Peggy Shyster. What was her last name in Hamilton?
Skylar.
Skylar. Thank you. Yes. Because they were the ones who hosted the nominees, the nominees list, which are father and daughter, Ron Cephas Jones and Jasmine Cephas Jones, if you didn't know. So yeah, but yeah, like Agent 70 said, the list is out there, is down there, and you can see me kind of run through it really fast. But we won't go into all of that. Falcon and Winter Soldier also was on that list, which brings us to the next article, because Don Cheadle is confused by Emmy nomination for Falcon and Winter Soldier cameo. He's like, I don't really get it. So yeah, Don Cheadle got a Emmy nod for being in the show for all of 4 minutes at the beginning of the first episode of the series.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah. So he says here, yeah, and even this article's like, yeah, Cheadle was in 2 scenes and hardly was in 2 scenes, and one of those scenes he was just listening to another character. He was listening to Sam talk. So, but he says, thanks, well wishers. Sorry, haters. Cheadle wrote on his Twitter page. I don't really get it either, but here we go. So yeah. And that's that. And that's that. Like you said, that was pretty funny that he got a nod for a nom for that. So next up, though.
Right. So did you see this particular trailer reaction video?
I did.
So I did too,
It's
and
kind of dry.
I was shocked by it, but at the same time, I understand the hyperbole behind these headlines.
Yeah, exactly.
So Deadpool finally crosses over to the MCU as part of a Free Guy trailer reaction. So the Free Guy movie is the next Ryan Reynolds vehicle, which is due in theaters on August 13th. But we actually get a trailer reaction video in addition to obviously in addition to the trailer, that stars Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, but also Taika Waititi as Korg from Ragnarok and from Infinity War and from Endgame. Korg does in fact join the Avengers charge at the end of Endgame. Yes. So it's a pretty interesting way of tying things together, kind of outside the Marvel universe, but kind of not, because you can't help but notice that, that is a Marvel character that is, or an MCU character that is hanging out with a Fox Marvel character. So you know what? It's, the family's been reunited in a sense.
Right, but also the easiest one they could do, because obviously Ryan Reynolds and Taika Waititi are in this Free Guy movie that they were talking about. So
but they don't own these characters. So that's where that's the kicker. They are the actual actors. They, as you said, they are both in this Free Guy movie, but they don't own these characters that they're portraying in this trailer reaction. So that's where the connection is made me do a double take. I was like, this really exists? Well, they are owned by the same parent company.
So yeah, easier to do. But also, as far as the video in itself, like, I felt like it was kind of dry. Now, granted, I am well established as not a big Deadpool fan, so the kind of humor that comes off is and Ryan Reynolds, actually, I'm not that big on either that much more anymore, so I don't know. That's just whatever. But it was all right. If you check it out if you feel like it. I say that. But next up, Henry Cavill's Samuel L. Jackson and more join Matthew Vaughn's new star-studded spy thriller. So Matthew Vaughn's next big-budget franchise has been announced, and the cast is seriously star-studded. Henry Cavill of The Witcher, Sam Rockwell, 3 Billboards, Bryce Dallas Howard of Jurassic World, Bryan Cranston, Breaking Bad. Some would say that Godzilla movie also, but you know, Catherine O'Hara, Schitt's Creek, John Cena from Suicide Squad. You kind of already know where these people are from. I don't know why I'm doing all of that, but Samuel L. Jackson from everything else are set to star the project titled Argyle. Marvel Studios. Wow, this article needs a little bit of editing. Marvel Studios, founded by Marv Studio. Oh wait, maybe that's not a typo, but the other one is. Marv Studios, founded by Vaughn, made the announcement and revealed that Dua Lipa, the pop star behind New Rules and Physical, will be making her acting debut in the movie, as well as performing the title track and score. Filming begins in August later this year. And apparently it's based off a spy novel of the same name by author Ellie Conway. The book hasn't even been released yet, apparently. But the story follows the world's greatest spies is caught up in a globetrotting adventure. The franchise, which doesn't sound, it basically sounds kind of like Kingsman, which I know there's another one of those that's coming out. Also with Matthew Vaughn. There you go. Next up.
All right. Next up, Netflix and Mark Miller announced King of Spies.
What is Millar?
No, I've actually heard him say it's Miller.
Really?
Believe it or not. Yeah.
Every time I've heard it is Millar. So okay. But cool. Moving right along. Keep going.
In all seriousness, I think it was an interview with him.
Right. No, I don't like that. I'm not doubting you, but I just, I'm sure you have heard of as I have.
Mm-hmm. I've done it. So when I heard him say no, it's actually Miller, I was like, oh, whoops.
Huh.
So his next comic book with Netflix, his comic book movie or project has been announced in the form of King of Spies, a new original series that will begin as a graphic novel from the Eisner Award nominee. And so the press release called King of Spies an original Netflix property and revealed that the artwork from the graphic novel will be based on designs created by the team of Netflix. Okay. Interesting.
Not gonna lie, I like Millar better, but Jupiter's Legacy stars react to apparent Netflix cancellation and spin-off news. So I guess Netflix canceled that Jupiter Legacy show after one season, which debuted on May the 7th. According to Deadline, the cast has been released from their obligations and contracts to the series. Instead, the franchise will pivot to become an anthology. In closing that door, Netflix has also opened a window. Deadline is also reporting that the streaming service has greenlit a live-action adaptation of Super Crooks, which goes deeper into Miller's world of supervillains. Millar sounds way better. Supervillains featured in Jupiter's Legacy. Said Miller, "We are confident we will return to Jupiter's Legacy, which could come back in a different iteration. Netflix also has an anime adaptation of Super Crooks on the way, so this all amounts to a lot of great news and content for Super Crooks fans." Okay. Next up.
Alrighty. Netflix's Witcher prequel recasts Sophia Brown in the lead role. Okay. Jodie Turner-Smith had to step down from the Witcher Blood Origin because of a scheduling conflict. Interesting. So, the show must go on.
Yep.
It's a real recasting simply because the original actress had to step down because of a scheduling conflict. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Classic 80s cartoon Silverhawks is getting a revival. I don't know why I said it like that. The Nacelle company, known for producing Netflix's The Toys That Made Us, is reviving the classic 1980s cartoon Silverhawks. Silverhawks is a beloved franchise that has been overlooked for far too long, said Brian Flynn, the founder and owner of toy company and Silverhawks IP holder Super 7. We are excited to be working with Nacelle to bring Silverhawks back into the limelight for the diehard fans, as well as a new generation of fans to experience the magic of Silverhawks for the first time. If they don't get Tallyhawk right, there's going to be a problem. That's all I'm saying.
I like Silverhawks. I was a fan.
I thought it was cool. Yeah.
I was definitely disappointed when it went off the air. And ladies and gentlemen, this is in the days when nobody had news at their fingertips or a supercomputer in their pockets. So we had no idea what was going on when it came to shows getting canceled. So when it didn't come back, I was like, what happened? This is such a good cartoon. So, I always liked the design. The design was the best. So.
Now, obviously some folks would say, oh, it's just a Thundercats ripoff. And it kind of was. But not really, because it's, if I'm not mistaken, it was the same company, so they were just repurposing their own stuff. So their own themes. So anyway, look forward to that when that happens. And go dig out those Silverhawks cartoons. I'm pretty sure they're out there somewhere, probably on Hulu or something. Elmer Fudd gets his gun back in HBO Max's...
I was about to say, this is my story.
Oh, okay.
Because you had the honor of announcing
right.
Silverhawks is getting a revival.
And now you have the honor of talking about Elmer Fudd. And a Looney Tunes revival.
Elmer Fudd gets his gun back in HBO Max's Looney Tunes revival. After losing his guns in last year's Looney Tunes cartoons, Elmer Fudd is back to shooting at Bugs Bunny with his hunting rifle in the new season. That is it in a nutshell.
Yeah. There we go. One of us is going to end up doing it. So wait, hold on. Does it say when that is going to pop off? Oh, apparently it's out today? Yeah,
really?
New Looney Tunes cartoons out today. Now with guns, treated the executive producer Pete Brownguard. So yeah, I guess it's out there. Which, wait, when does this article came out? July 10th.
The 8th.
The 10th, yeah.
Yeah, but the tweet was from the 8th.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, because I feel like I was like, yeah, maybe I did see this when I was looking through HBO Max and thought it was something that was already out there.
Yeah, it's been a week. Look at that.
Yeah. New Star Trek movie is happening. Chris Pine's crew returns with WandaVision director. The next Star Trek movie is moving forward with WandaVision director Matt Shakman. Deadline reports that Shakman has just signed a deal to direct the next untitled Star Trek movie for Paramount and Bad Robot's J.J. Abrams. Following several false starts, which is kind of an understatement, to get the franchise's next movie off the ground. The news comes shortly after Shakman's WandaVision nabbed 23 Emmy nominations this year, instantly making everyone involved a much hotter commodity, as this article writes. And that's not wrong. Of course, the biggest question most everyone will have about the new Star Trek is if it will serve as a continuation of the previous movies. Per Deadline, the plan is for the original, quote-unquote, original cast from the reboot timeline, that's the Kelvin timeline, folks, the one led by Chris Pine, to come back for the sequel. Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robertson penned the screenplay for the movie, and Shakman will be seated in the director's chair. So, look forward for that when that happens. And I could have sworn, like, Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth at one point was not coming back to those movies because of money. I feel like
I remember we reported on a story.
Yes, exactly.
At some point. I definitely remember that. That does ring a bell.
So, I guess some got him back on then. Next up, so in a new featurette that was shared ahead of Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins, titled Insane Ninja Training. A new featurette has been released, and it offers a behind-the-scenes look at the film's production, fight training, cool stunt work that we'll be seeing in the film. The promo also features interviews with the cast and crew and shows off some new action-packed footage from the film. I am still so conflicted about Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. Yeah. Its casting of Henry Golding as Snake Eyes. I'm very conflicted by this. Yeah.
I am. I am for my own reasons.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
for my own reasons, just conflicted. You know.
Well, my conflict comes from the whole. Yeah, I get that this is an origin story, and at some point, Snake Eyes did talk, but still,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious as to how they're going to handle it, and some of the people that we know are showing up in this that probably shouldn't be. We don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah,
Well, I
I
mean,
don't.
this is supposed to, cover his origin up until a certain thing happens to him.
Right.
I presume.
Right.
So, I understand that. So, but may have to do a whole show on my misgivings about this movie.
I suspect I know one of them, but sure.
But yeah, we'll move on to the next story.
Mm-hmm. That's me?
Yeah, you got the honor of the last cinematic news story.
I have the honor to be. John Wick 4 adds Marco Zaror as one of the Hitman's enemies. Much like his roster of action stars, the cast of John Wick 4 continues to beef up as franchise newcomer Marco Zaror is in talks to board the sequel. The Chilean stuntman joins the third entry in the Hitman series. You mean the fourth entry into the series, and not to be confused with Hitman, because there is some Hitman movies, so not to be confused with those. As one of Wick's main pursuers, as Deadline reports, Zaror made a name for himself on screen in From Dusk Till Dawn, the series, where he played Zolo, the undead Aztec warrior demon who trained in hell. Okay, because I have no idea who this person was. And apparently he was a stunt double for The Rock, and he was also in Machete Kills, which I still have yet to see. So, okay, there you go. Next up, we're going to transition into the cartoon, the comic book news. MCU Loki Funko Pops, including Alligator Loki and the other available other variants, are about. So I know during the news there was a good bit of Funko Pop news, and I can't remember if I did this one or not, which is why this one is here. But yeah, there are Loki variant Funko Pops, not Sylvie, mind you, but Kid Loki, Classic Loki, Alligator Loki, and looks like President Loki are the ones here. So if you're wanting any of those, they will be out there soon enough. Next
up, Deadpool, the most popular manga of 2021, gets an English release. Okay,
I don't know if that's true.
Fans waiting to get their hands on the English edition of the Deadpool Samurai manga now have a release window to look forward to. Viz Media announced Deadpool Samurai, the most popular manga of 2021, will release in spring 2021. Spring 2022, that is. Must be a typo. Announcement: Deadpool moves to Tokyo and encounters just about every kind of shonen trope you can think of. Viz Media's tweet reads, "Chaos and humor collide in Deadpool Samurai, out spring 2022." Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely must be a typo because we are past 2021.
Yeah, I was about to say I fixed it in our news.
Well, no, it's in the article, so that's
exactly. Must be a typo in their article.
Yeah, but yeah, nevertheless, that is a thing, and I think we did know this was coming anyway, and along with a couple of other Marvel manga, but I think this is the first one to come out, and that's going to be spring of next year. So there you go. But next up, Spirits of Vengeance. Spirit Rider teams up Kushala and Johnny Blaze. So Kushala rides again in the upcoming Marvel Comics one-shot Spirits of Vengeance Spirit Rider. The Black Eyed Peas' Taboo is working with longtime friend and co-writer B. Earl on this special one-shot. with art from Paul Davidson and the recently added Jeffrey Verege. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'm so sorry. In August, Verege.
It's for. Yeah, I was about to say, whatchamacallit, he's having some health issues, if I'm not
Exactly. I was about to mention that as well. In August 4th, Spirits of Vengeance. So I don't know if we're going to see another article at some point, whether he's still on this order or whether maybe his stuff is already, a lot of stuff is already done. But it said recently added, so I don't know, how much is left to do. In August 4th, Spirits of Vengeance, Spirit Rider of the 1800s, Sorcerer Supreme, Ghost Rider will team up with the modern day Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze. So yeah, there you go. Nothing, and apparently this is probably going to follow up some of that Johnny Blaze King of Hell stuff, I guess. And we'll see how that goes. Next up.
Okay, next up. Marvel's next Black Panther series has been delayed for 3 months.
Boo.
The upcoming Black Panther series by John Ridley and Juan Cabal has been delayed. The publisher informed retailers that the monthly series originally planned to launch on August 4th has now been postponed to November 3rd. The second issue is now slated to arrive December 1st. Marvel did not disclose the reason for the delay. However, the previous volume did have routine scheduled issues, not including an 11-month hiatus during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah. Alrighty. Spider-Man's powers can resist 2 of the Infinity Stones, and this is spoilers from the Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 2, which I think was last week. So apparently, let's see, not without going into this whole story about that Infinity thing. Take my word for it. I believe it has something to do with his spider. I remember seeing it, but it has something to do with his spider sense and one of his other powers. So, but yeah, there is that. Next up.
Okay. Iron Man becomes Prison Man in the October Marvel Darkhold special. So Iron Man reads from the Darkhold and his armor turns into a prison in the October special. Spoilers.
Yeah.
All right, so it's a one shot that's related to the Darkhold miniseries.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it's the middle portion of the Darkhold event. All right, so there's going to be 5 one-shots serving as the middle portion of the Darkhold event. So this is one of those 5.
Mm-hmm. Marvel writer Al Ewing takes us inside the psychedelic realities of his new Defenders comic series. I'll just kind of cut to the chase. That next month, Ewing and artist Javier Rodriguez will launch an all-new 5-issue Defenders series featuring a lineup of the supergroup representing all different eras of its strange history. As they delve into what Marvel Comics solicits for the series called the hidden architecture of reality itself. In the process, they'll venture deep into the past of the Marvel multiverse, meet some unexpected major players, and pay off some storylines that Ewing's been building ever since Marvel Comics 1000 2 years ago. And the rest of it is an article. The rest of the article is talking with Ewing from Sci-Fi. So, and a first look at some preview pages therein. So you take a look at that if you so inclined. Next up. Mute it.
Next up, Mr. Knight takes flight in Moon Knight #1 preview. So if you take a look at this preview of pages from the upcoming Moon Knight series, from writer Jed McKay and artist Alessandro Cappuccio. It's going to come out soon, beginning with July 21st, Moon Knight #1. Okay.
Yep.
I was about to say that's next week. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, I think we had heard about this previously.
Oh, definitely. I was about to say I have it on my pull list. I'm curious to see what McKay does with it.
Yep. Indeed. So Badass Mofo 25th Anniversary Companion and Toilet Reader. So this is a Kickstarter from one David F. Walker, writer of Bitter Root and Power Man and Iron Fist and other things. He wrote a book. I do remember hearing about this book when I first heard about David F. Walker. Basically, David F. Walker is a lover of blaxploitation, and this is the first issue of his zine from 25 years ago. He says here, primarily as an expression of my appreciation for blaxploitation, filled with poorly written, political, and incorrect reviews of blaxploitation movies, as well as all kinds of the pop culture insanity. Badass Mofo has been an important part of his life for a long time, and now it's time to celebrate a quarter century of badassery and mofoishness. So if you're interested in that, you can go check out the Kickstarter and back the project, which has, as of this recording, 22 days to go. Next up, he also wrote Shaft, so a Shaft comic back in a few years ago. This is another reason why I came across him. So yeah. Anyway.
Alrighty. Mattel has put out its has released teasers for its San Diego Comic-Con 2021 exclusives. They'll be available on Mattel Creations next Thursday, July 22nd at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So Roddykat should have this up. You can get your hands on a Hot Wheels Batman First Appearance Batmobile, which is red, or at least a maroonish color. It has Batman behind the wheel with Robin riding alongside. It comes in collectible packaging that reproduces the cover from Detective Comics number 27. That's interesting looking, to say the least. You also get a Hot Wheels Star Wars green Darth Vader character car. Okay. So Roddykat should be scrolling past this. And you also get, oh my gosh, Kevin. So you get from Pixar's Up, Kevin and Babies pack featuring the elusive tropical bird Kevin and 3 babies. Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
I'm glad you knew who that was, because I had never seen it.
You never seen Up?
No, I have not.
Oh, you've got to watch Up, but be prepared to be in tears like the first 2 minutes.
That is, yeah, actually, that part I have seen, and that is the reason why I have not watched it.
It is so sad, at least at the beginning. They don't warn you. That's the thing. They don't warn you. They don't tell you coming in. You're forewarned, and it's a tough watch, but it's still a very worthwhile movie to watch. Also, you get the Jurassic Park scene, the final Ray Arnold scene. So you get Chief Engineer John Raymond Ray Arnold, that's played by Sam Jackson, heading to the maintenance shed, being run down by a Velociraptor. It's kind of sad, but it's still kind of cool that that they decided to do this, and it does come with a detachable Sam Jackson arm. Oh gosh, that's a spoiler alert for a very old movie. You also get
hey, look, he didn't get eaten by a shark, so.
Right, no, I was laughing at the WWE Ultimate Edition Sergeant Slaughter. Oh my goodness, that is so funny. So yeah, that is also coming out as a Mattel exclusive for San Diego Comic-Con online. Look at that.
So yeah, and yes, as Agent 7 said, I did, as he was talking about it, I showed him on the video version of the program. If you are so inclined, you should check out the video version sometimes. Aquaman and Green Arrow team up in a new series. DC icons Green Arrow and Aquaman are teaming up in a new series titled Deep Target, starring in October. As this article says, hey, it doesn't have the same ring as Green Lantern and Green Arrow, but at least they'll both wear green. In the new 7-issue series was confirmed by DC, but first announced via Twitter by writer Brandon Thomas, who will also write the upcoming Aquaman solo limited series, Aquaman Becoming, which I believe is the one that features Jackson Hyde. says Arthur Curry and Oliver Queen team up and throw down in Deep Target, a mind-bending, world-altering adventure that launches in October. Read Thomas's tweet. So there you go. The series will be illustrated by Ronan Cliché, Ulysses Areola, with covers by Marco Santucci and Inyuk Lee. Next.
Okay. DC is set to launch a new Human Target title by Tom King and Greg Smallwood. And this is a new black label DC title, and it's going to debut in November, kicking off a 12-issue run. Okay.
Yep. And
it's not a character I'm that familiar with, so.
Yeah, one that actually had a very short-lived TV show also, apparently. Yeah, so in the tradition of Tom King's 12-issue runs, here's another one. DC has long-term plans for Green Arrow's son, Connor Hawke, apparently. Comic writer Joshua Williamson recently revealed that Green Arrow's son, Connor Hawke, will play a big role in both his Robin series and the ongoing Infinite Frontier era at DC Comics moving forward. Connor Hawke is a major part of the Robin book for the tournament arc, and the tournament arc is long, Williamson explained in a new interview with The Beat. Excuse me, it's not a short arc. The tournament itself doesn't start until issue 6. So the writer adds that they have so much story to tell in regard to both Connor and Robin that the arc is expected to spread across 2 issues. Okay. The editors were like, "This is too packed." Williamson recalled about turning in his initial drafts. "We all decided, let's break it in 2. I had to do some rewriting and some fixing, but for the most part, we didn't want to rush it." So there you go. And apparently, it's been a long time since Connor Hawke has been in the DCU. It says here 10 years. So, and that Williamson likes that character, which is why, which is another reason why the character's getting so much play.
It's been a long time.
Indeed. Next up.
All right. The Batman screenwriter asks, what if Batman was real in a new comic book series? Batman the Imposter is a new and different look at Gotham's Guardian as he begins his war on crime. The series will examine Batman through the lens of trying to make him seem as real as possible. The October 12th day and date launch in print and digital will be matched by localized print versions of the series in 13 territories, Spain, Germany, Brazil, and many other countries around the world. DC has already announced the series will be collected in a hardcover format on February 22nd, 2022. As I said, it's written by film director and screenwriter Mattson Tomlin. And looking for the art. The cover is by Andrea Sorrentino. But no artist listed here in... Oh, it's illustrated by Andrea Sorrentino. Okay. So he is he's cut his Gotham City teeth on Batman-related titles like writer Jeff Lemire's Joker Killer Smile and Batman the Smile Killer. Okay.
All right. DC honors 80th anniversary of Wonder Woman with 12 new 12 titles. Excuse me. For the global celebration of Wonder Woman, DC is honoring the iconic character's 80th anniversary with a vibrant collection of commemorative releases, free editions, and new series launches, all starring DC's Champion of Truth and Warrior of Peace. Headlined by the inspiring anthology showcasing 23 trailblazing women around the world, Wonderful Women of the World, DC will also thrill Wonder Woman fans with a 100-page spectacular, a commemorative hardcover, and multiple brand new series, all set to release this fall to the global celebration of Wonder Woman Day on October 21st. One of those particular series that is starting up, as I've come to find out today, is Nubia and the Amazons, which is being written by Stephanie Williams and Vita Ayala, and Aletha Martinez, I believe, is doing the art on it. So that was something that that I saw on Twitter today, which was a cool thing to see. let's see, yeah, Alita Martinez, and yeah, that's that. So that's going to launch October 5th. So if you're a fan of Nubia, you can definitely check that out. But also, there's going to be other Wonder Woman related stuff, such as a couple of things that's already out. You know, like Wonder Girl and Wonder Woman Black and Gold and a bunch of other stuff around that time. Next up.
In some really, really sad news that came out this week, we got word that critically acclaimed DC artist Robson Rocha passed away at the age of 41 after a battle with COVID-19. Rocha is best known for his work on Green Lanterns, Aquaman, and his recent work on Future State, Justice League. Last week, donations were being requested for blood by associates of Rocha in Brazil. Rocha was born in Brazil, lived in Minas Gerais, and signed an exclusive deal with DC in 2016, leading to him working on projects within DC Rebirth. His comic work preceded this as he began working in the industry in 2010 on titles within the New 52, such as Lobo, Birds of Prey, and Batman Superman. I can tell you that listening to podcast interviews with, oh my gosh, her name just slipped my mind. Matt Fraction's wife. She wrote Aquaman, and she mentioned Rocha's art as being a selling point for her. Really enjoying her time on Aquaman. Why is it blanking?
Why is she blanking?
It's late in the night, folks. My brain has shorted out. I cannot remember. Oh my God! What did the Google say? We're gonna kick ourselves for not remembering.
Yeah, I see her face right now, but it just Kelly Sue DeConnick.
Kelly Sue DeConnick. Shame on both of us for not remembering this off the top of the dome.
I know her face. I see her face because yes, I saw her face when you said it, and I couldn't remember her name.
It was literally on the tip of my tongue, and I'm like, wait, she's married to Matt Fraction. I should know this.
Yes, exactly.
This is stupid. We followed her career ever since she joined comics. Writing comics, and obviously her groundbreaking run on Captain Marvel.
Yes.
And creating that particular evolution of the character. Sorry about that, Kelly Sue.
Yes, definitely.
But getting back to the crux of this story, I remember hearing a podcast where Kelly Sue DeConnick was the interviewee, and she went on and on about Robson Rocha doing such great work, and we were familiar with it, but because we're not the biggest DC heads,
right, we
knew it by sight, not necessarily by name.
Right.
We've endeavored to learn more about creators by naming them in our when we're doing reviews, so that we've become familiar with some art styles. But if we're not reading Aquaman, we really wouldn't have seen too much of Rocha's stuff. We probably saw it on recent issues of Justice League, but it just hadn't created that kind of impact on us. I was following his Insta, but I can tell you that this is a huge loss for the comic book community and the artist community as a whole. Very sad to hear. And and it's unfortunate that especially in Brazil, where they were literally hosting a soccer tournament despite rapidly rising COVID-19 rates. I hate to stand on a soapbox, but if you can, folks, get your vaccinations.
Exactly. If you want to smash some dude named Scott, go get your shot. Some of y'all know where that comes from.
Exactly. And I think there's probably still a GoFundMe out there. I don't have a link to it in this article, but I believe there is a GoFundMe for Rocha's family.
Probably,
so
yeah.
Take a look for that on the Googles.
Yep, indeed. And we might try to put that in the show notes. But move on, and shout out to Kelly Sue DeConnick, because we love her. I do. I can't speak for Age 70, but He-Man's power has a dramatic due origin in Netflix's Masters of the Universe. And this is spoilers from the comic book, not the show, which came out last week, which neither one of us had read, but I intended to at some point. Netflix's upcoming Masters of the Universe Revelation is an much anticipated direct sequel to the original 1983 animated series, and is rumored to uncover new secrets about He-Man and his allies on Eternia. The first of these secrets have just been revealed in the pages of Revelation's prequel comic book series, and it changes everything previously known about the Sword of Power. I won't go into it too much more than that. Just in case you're quite interested in that. But, I don't know, if you're so interested, check that book out, I guess. Next up.
Alrighty, next up, what are we up to? Action figures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Action figures for Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe Revelation series are now up for pre-order. The first wave of figures include He-Man, Mossman, Skeletor, Evil Lyn, Spikor, Beastman, Tila, Man-at-Arms, a 9-inch tall Skelegod, which I actually saw on the Fat Man Beyond YouTube show of that self-same podcast, and a 14-inch long Battle Cat. These are all available at Entertainment Earth and are priced at $23.99 to $40.99. You can also get them at retail stores.
And you can see the figures alongside their boxes on the video version of this show and in the show notes. Last but not least, I'm pretty sure that's the case. Let me make sure. I'm going to skip some things. Power Rangers deck building game announces its first expansion. Renegade Game Studios has announced the first standalone expansion for Power Rangers deck building game. The expansion is called Zeo, Stronger Than Before, and the article writer is apparently pumped. Zeo is one of their favorite seasons, and they are excited that it's going to add characters to the game. There are also new Zeo subcrystals, that can be acquired by both teams. And the article writer is not sure what to do with them yet, but the pre-orders for Zeo Stronger Than Before are live on the Renegade store, and apparently you'll get a bonus pack too if you pre-order, which adds General Vengeance to the game along with his Shadowclaw weapon, to alternate art hit point, energy trackers, and Serpentera. So I have not played that game. I did not know that existed, so yeah, I didn't know anything about that, I don't think. There you go though. And that, folks, is the news, and thereby the end of the show for us. But first, can we get one more ad read?
Our last ad read of the night is for Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Blue Apron, fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron. Always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today.
And folks, that ends the show for this week. We thank each and every one of you for coming through, coming by, listening, watching, whichever way you came through. We'll be back next week, same bad time, same big channel. I have been Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_Dirt on Twitter, PopCultureNet on Twitter, PopCultureNetwork.com, and all those umbrella sites therein, and probably Byte under Comic Reviews, no vowels, if that's still a thing. Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter, the Osiris that is ish. You can also find Tim at CBCron, on Twitter. That's the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. You can also find Tim at The Click Nation on Twitter. That's TheKliqNation, all one word. Also theclicknation.com. But mostly you can find Tim over at Comic Book Resources. That's CBR.com, writing his face off. And again, you find this here show on CSPN.us.
Do it today.
That's right. That's the Cold Slither Podcast Network, in case you ain't know. You can also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network SoundCloud page. You can also find us on live every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. on either twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles or youtube.com/TheClickNation, where we go live and you can check us out. Again, audio comes out after a couple of days after that on Sunday-ish, most times, on the aforementioned podcast perusal places of choice. So go there. And with that, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
Wakanda forever!